continue to fund this war for themselves for at least a month, 30 days, if not for 60 days. That's what Tom Cooper is telling us. Adrian, you agree with him? It's possible?
Absolutely, yes, absolutely.
It's possible. Let's just come back to the Strait of Hormuz, and Tarak Kartaji, watch this. Now, this is the image that we've got. Look at this is that entire hub. On the wall, you can see this. On the wall, you see this corner here. This is Khasab. It says Khasab here. Arpit, just come over here, and then you can see. This is Khasab here, right? You see Khasab. Now, let's look at this. This is the Khasab area. Okay, look at that, and this is that arc, viewers. Look at the number of ships which are parked here, away, and they're waiting to enter. And then there again, at the Bandar Abbas port also, there are a lot of, and then there are ships which are here. And this is where one of the tankers which is trying to enter was bombed today. We put out those visuals of the Omani tanker that was bombed also. Somewhere here, it was trying to enter, and they bombed. Now, what does that mean? Oman was the one that was trying to negotiate peace. Oman was the one that was trying to help. Now, they bombed the Omanis also.
But Oman is also housing one of the bases for the American and British troops in the Middle East. And therefore, Iranians are striking all such bases, and they are sending a clear signal, either you are with us or you are against us. And since they have permitted such a base, sorry guys.
Right. Can we just have the visuals of the Omani tanker also on the screen? That was, we had the picture of the tanker ablaze. If you come back here, Adrian, sorry, Tom. Now, if this entire place is blocked, so let's say this entire place now stands blocked because the Strait of Hormuz is closed. Okay, this is where the bombing happened?
Yes, this area.
This is where tanker was bombed? Okay, let's say this tanker is bombed here. Now what's going to happen? What's the pinch that the Chinese, the Russians, India, the rest of the world is going to feel because this strait is currently blocked?
Now the question, who has bought oil from whom?
Okay.
Because for their part, Iranians have an oil pipeline leading down to Chabahar, sorry.
Yeah, Chabahar is here.
Here.
So the entire pipeline comes all the way up to Chabahar. So the Iranians have, this is a pipeline. So this is a pipeline all the way up to Chabahar.
Precisely on basis of experiences from war with Iraq in the 1980s, when there were also such discussions about closing the Strait of Hormuz, they have decided, okay, we have to build a pipeline which is connecting our oil fields in the north, not actually, this is western Iran, down all the way to the coast of the Oman Sea, Oman Gulf, sorry. And therefore, they have built this pipeline, and they can continue exporting. But oil producers here in the Persian Gulf, now they can't export.
Right. Now, so if oil producers in the Persian Gulf, so that is, if we were to reduce this, I'm going to delete all the images, and let's try and reduce this. And we'll see which are the countries which are going to get affected all around the Persian Gulf. So we've got UAE. UAE doesn't have oil, but Qatar has, Bahrain has, Kuwait has, and they all have natural gas. Iraq has. There is, and of course, then you will have Oman, which will also get impacted because of this.
Absolutely.
I'm marking them.
Yeah. So he's marking them, and yeah,
and foremost, it is enough to generate immense global pressure, because if a few tankers are burned in this area, then you can expect the price of oil worldwide to grow up drastically. And imagine the impact if you have a doubling of the price of the oil at the pump within a span of a few days, in India, in Switzerland, in Austria, everywhere. And this, of course, will entice a lot of governments to try to pressure the American and Israeli to stop this war as soon as they can.
Is it going to pressure the Americans and the Israeli, or is it going to get all of these nations to gang up against the Iranians and say, just wipe them out?
They can do,
when I say the regime, not the Iranians.
They can do much more, because they have no solution to be certain to clear the situation fast enough, quickly enough.
Well, MJ Vinod and also Lieutenant General D.P. Pandey join us. Good evening, gentlemen, along with Taraji. Yes, Tom, and then we'll go after that.
Just a short one. One shouldn't forget that the majority of population of Bahrain are Shia. One shouldn't forget that the eastern province of Saudi Arabia is majority population is Shia.
Shia.
So Iran has a leverage over here. They can also subvert the countries, cause troubles at home, cause sabotage at the facilities.
So let's say this entire belt is largely Shia.
Bahrain used to be under Iranian control until the 19th century. So,
but
it still has
they've
influence.
attacked Manama. The Iranians have bombed Manama.
Yes, that's it. But what have they bombed? A U.S. base in Manama.
But is that going to shift? What's going to happen? Gentlemen, let's come back and let's take our seats as we get General Pandey. General Pandey, please weigh in. The Strait of Hormuz blocked, and we also now have, we're trying to understand the scenario. The nations are going to meet. Mahmoud Ahmadinejad is dead. Pezeshkian has just released a statement. The Arab countries are going to look at Iran's retaliation and then react to that. Is there going to be growing pressure on the Americans to back off, Americans and the Israelis? Or should we lead what the Saudis have written very carefully, where the Saudis say, whatever Oman decides, whatever UAE decides, whatever Kuwait decides, whatever Bahrain decides, we will give you our full and unhindered support. Does that mean more than what the Israelis are saying? Because there is talk, General Pandey, that the Saudis also implored the Americans to go ahead and stop this regime. The Israelis now claim that we have stopped the Iranians from making nearly a possible 8,000 ballistics by 2027, which would have become an existential concern not just for Israel but for the entire region. Ji, sir.
Yeah, Anand, so there are three major issues you talked of, and I'll just try and cover all three. 8,000 ballistic missiles. The whole issue was not only rolling back of nuclear umbrella weapons program, which I think in a discussion in Oman, Iranians have virtually agreed to majority of the things which Americans wanted. But they said, and I think Khamenei said about 24 hours back very clearly, that ballistics missile program I'm not going. So who was under threat of it? You, America, with the hypersonic missile systems, they still had a warning before their continent could be struck they could have taken care of it. But the people who were under threat were the Saudis, right? So that is a concern. Now, second is this issue which you just mentioned about Saudis imploring Americans to take out Iran. I don't think so that may be appropriate, because about a month back, the Saudis had said that we will not allow, and all the Gulf countries have said very clearly, and they reached out to the Iranian president and said that we will not allow Americans to use their territory for any efforts against Iran.
Right.
But yet Iran has got a strategy in place which is flawed, and which I can talk about it later. But the fact is that they started opening fire not on Israel first, but rather on the Gulf countries, the first targets who, and you imagine Oman, which was the neutralist of all countries forever since its creation, ever in this region, right? Everybody is polarized to one side or other. But Omanis are possibly one of the most simplest people. But then you go out and strike them who were actually helping them out in this whole effort. So there's one part. Now coming on to the energy issue. Is everybody going to go back to Americans and say stop? No, I don't think so. Everybody is going to now say that this cancer, okay, it may not be appropriate. I'm not talking to the Iranian people. I'm talking the regime.
Yeah.
This cancer which has been sucking us out and dry. And there's a large section of Iranian population also which will come out and possibly implore that, okay, 40 years of sanctions, the Americans are bad guys. But please understand, the world has gone beyond to a development phase in which all the targets in Dubai, in Abu Dhabi, are not military targets which this regime is targeting. They are targeting which Palm Islands or
Palm Jumeirah.
They're targeting, Palm Jumeirah, and they're targeting Burj Khalifa. You are targeting exactly those structures which are towards modernity, right? And therefore, rather than going towards the current contemporary world environment where everybody is living in a different era, you continue to live in a world or environment where destroy America, destroy Israel, destroy this regime, where everybody is trying to engage with Israel and start trying to get some peace in this area. You want to continue the path, and therefore I think everybody was going to say, and again, just remember the majority of the population is Sunnis. So they will like this whole problem to go away once for all.
Right.
Because you can't keep on pushing this problem for tomorrow when it's going to be bigger and bigger
Correct.
thing to be cut. I think, is there an energy crisis? I don't think so. For next 1 or 2 months, there's a major issue, right?
Right.
Why so? I think one answer is given, and I'll just ask, which Tom has not spoken about. There is a land pipeline route to Red Sea, right? It may not have the enough capacity to pump, but then there are alternatives. There is an alternative which now India and other countries can now push Americans that we now need to diversify. By the way, you are doing business with Russia. If this is going to be prolonged affair, let's start pumping oil from Russia. And do you think that Russia is not going to stop selling oil? No, it is in this geopolitical game, no country is indispensable. And today, a lot of people are talking, is Russia going to side with Iran? Is China going to be siding with Iran? Look at Syria, what happened. Look at Afghanistan, what happened. Iran will fall in place in the same manner through the Chinese and through the Russians. So I've just given you a broad geopolitical environment. Today, let me talk to you something else, and Taraji to think about, and I have to think about.
Right.
A major issue is, do you think this war is only related to this issue, or is it putting Chinese into place?
Right. We're just going to save the China angle because it's a larger, longer conversation. Dan Pfefferman is also with us. Taraji, coming to you in a bit. We've got lots to cover, lots of ground to cover. We've got fresh visuals also coming through, viewers. That's a drone. That's not an aircraft. That's a drone. That's a UAV. Yeah. I think that's the...
Israeli Hermes 900.
Yeah, it's a Israeli Hermes 900. That's the visuals coming in. That's being downed. The Iranians also claim that they have fired 4 ballistic missiles against at the USS Gerald, USS Abraham Lincoln. We are given to understand. Yes, the USS Abraham Lincoln has been attacked by 4 ballistic missiles. And Iran claims to have downed an American MQ-9 Reaper drone also. The Reapers actually hang very high in the sky, and then they have got great potency. But Dan Pfefferman, thank you for your patience, and thank you for joining us. Now, how do you see this? The Iranians don't seem to be backing down. The Israelis claim that they have actually preempted what could have turned out to be catastrophic sometime in 2027. And before it became a behemoth of ballistics, the Iranians, they have actually pushed them back, pegged them back. But there will be pressure, because if the Strait of Hormuz is closed, if there are civilians who are stranded, airspace is closed, there will be pressure building on Israel and America to back off, to try and announce a ceasefire so that people can either get out or go back home.
Yeah, this is a broad, multi-decade attack that Iran has been building and then launched on October 7th. Against Israel, and as you can see, against all of the moderate states in the region. And so from Israel's point of view, of course, we're not privy to what the CIA or the Mossad or decision makers have, but they saw this as a preemptive strike to ward off bigger offensives, bigger onslaughts by Iran and its various proxies around the region. And it was determined by the leadership, again, with information we're not all privy to, that this is the right time to strike while Iran is weak, while Iran is backed up. The Iranian proxy arrays have been all but dismantled around the region. And of course, after the June series of attacks by the United States and Israel. But this is a bigger American play that Israel is just a part of. There are bigger global geopolitical and regional issues at play here. And it was decided, I don't think a ceasefire is going to be on the table here. It was decided by the Americans, by Donald Trump, the leader of the free world, whether people like that or not, that this is time now to take down this Iranian regime. And so the scenarios that we can most likely expect, of course, I think with this American president, we've been all surprised time and again. But what we can expect and what he's said from his statements is that those in the IRGC, those in the military, can lay down their arms. New leadership, if was not already identified and appointed, can step up, and maybe the Americans and others have worked to prepare some kind of alternative leadership similar to what happened in Venezuela. And the idea is to get some kind of leadership in Iran that would work with the international community, with the West, and would stop being a constant strategic and even existential threat to the region, to the international community.
All right. We've got Dr. Ranganathan joining us. We've got MJ Vinod with us. Dan, I'm going to request you to stay on. And to all our guests and to our viewers, just stay with us. It's a compulsion. We've got to take a very short break. When we come back, we get our perspectives from all our other panelists and also expand the scope of this conversation. It's not just this area. You've got to move up about 30,000 feet like a Reaper drone and look at the larger picture and say the nations that are going to be impacted and who's the actual end game here. Is it China? Is there more to it than meets the eye, as General Pandey asked? We'll try and answer all those questions. Stay with us, please. Sorry, Zaka, I missed you out there. What we're going to do to our viewers, bear with us. I've got Tom Cooper here with me. We've got the wall and we've got the map. Let's try and understand how this entire strikes. How did 200 Israeli aircraft fly over the Tehran airspace, drop those bombs and then come back? So let's game this and understand, does Tehran have no air defense system? And that too, you had the Israeli aircrafts take off from here, Tom, correct? So tell us, and how did this happen? How does this work?
Yeah. Thank you. It's like this. You have the Iranian air defense system is approximately here, around Tabriz, around Tehran, and you have Qom and Esfahan and Karaj. So this is the principal area that, sorry, I forgot further south here, another one. This is the principal areas that are covered by Iranian air defense system. The Israelis now come up from Israel, fly over Syria and Iraq.
Right.
Like this.
So that's how they cleared the airspaces in these regions so that these planes could fly.
Exactly. This is why no airliners are currently permitted to fly over Iraq and over Syria.
Right.
So over the border between Iraq and Syria, there are US and Israeli tankers waiting for them, and they are refueling them in the air.
In the air. So
Yes.
the on-air tankers. Okay, because this is more than a 2,000-kilometer journey that they have to fly.
It is over 1,000 kilometers, 1,700 kilometers to the
1,700
border, so 1,500 kilometers. But the point is this, in order to release their missiles, they have to fly high and fast,
Okay.
which is spending lots of fuel. Therefore, here, either the Israeli or the US tankers from bases in Saudi Arabia come up here and they are waiting for them here in this area.
So that's where the on-air refueling happens over Syria and Iraq airspace?
air over Iraq
About how
is
many
here.
thousand feet high?
Well, 30,000 feet.
30,000 feet plus.
Okay. So more, that depends on the weather.
Right.
Generally, tanker aircraft is flying higher. It lowers its boom, and then comes the combat aircraft and refuels from that boom.
Right.
So they connect and they download the fuel.
Right.
So once this has happened, they accelerate, come up to, this is one of the principal launch zones, the other is up here, and they are shooting their air-launched ballistic missiles into Iran, like this, into central Iran. So
All right.
actually, the Israelis barely need to enter the Iranian airspace in order to hit targets deep inside Iran,
Right.
approximately to the line Tehran, Esfahan, Bushehr. So that is this part of the story.
Okay. Now, so let's erase this. Do you want to erase this? Okay. So we're going to erase all of this. And we're going to dive deeper into what's happening in Tehran. Why is it that when they're seeing so many ballistic missiles coming into Tehran, and yesterday over the Tehran airspace, these aircrafts actually flew over the Iranian airspace. So what happens there? Let's deep dive first.
What happens when they are closer in? Just a second. Sorry. So here we have a zoom in to Iran. I said we have.
You got to draw. Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah. Yeah.
So, for example, let's say Qom, air defense system of Qom. You have short range, you have medium range, and you have long range. And
Back live, viewers, and we've just got update that Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, the former president of Iran, has also been killed in the Israeli strikes, US-Israeli strikes under Operation Lion's Roar or Epic Fury, irrespective of which name you'd like to say. But Fateh Khyber is not something that they're willing to let up on, the Iranians. They're going to come back, and they said revenge is now our duty. So Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, the supreme leader, is dead. The interim leader is Ali Reza, Ayatollah Ali Reza. He's been named the interim leader. But Ali Shamkhani, the advisor for security affairs and Secretary of Defense Council, has also been eliminated. Then the next one is Mohammad Pakpor. Mohammad Pakpor is the commander of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, IRGC. In fact, the top 35-40 commanders have been killed. But Iran has democratized its leadership so much after Iraq and what happened in Iraq that they are replacing them by the minute. It's like a line assembly there for leadership to next in line to come and take charge. Mohammad Shirazi, head of the military bureau, he's dead. Aziz Nazirzadeh is also the Minister of Defense. He's also Nazirzadeh, he's also dead. Abdul Rahim Mousavi, he is also now dead, Armed Forces Chief. The Tehran command, totally leadership that's been wiped out. So that's the one. Now we are also given to understand that there is a Tehran command, this entire summit camp. This is what General Pandey had helped us game and understand how these nuclear sites have been decimated and how they did. So the northern front, there was a Camp Alpha, that's the active ground. General Pandey, you want to take us through this entire command and how this whole thing operated? How did they enter the areas of Qom and come back? And how is it that this entire operation was gamed? It was multi-pronged. There was a lot of decades of intelligence that was also used. There are also these UAVs and satellites that were hovering around constantly over Iran to identify the sites, even as the ballistics were being fired from their silos, or even if there was movement of certain vehicles and people as to where they were moving. The Israelis, the Americans, they worked very hard with their neighbors to do this. So can you explain this, please?
So Anand, I'll just go back about 8 months back when Lion Rise happened. And if you recall, when we were discussing this, there are two things which came on very clearly. Why did they stop when the Iranians were down? And second was, why was Khamenei and the top leadership spared when everything else could have been taken out? They had all the intelligence, right? So that point of time, the jus ad ballum, which I talk of very, very important facet, when you go for a larger conflict with a certain degree of confidence that in the international environment, you will be accepted what you have done is right. So therefore, that is the time, if you recall, a lot of movement, a lot of communication happened, and thereafter, the process of protecting the entire chain of command was happening. And then is the whole process of discussion which started, of talks and this thing. Eventually, I think in last about 2 months or 3 months, we have been talking on your channel as well, that the process of centering, it was only when the strike was to go, because eventually Khamenei had to shut the door, and Khamenei shut the door on the talks on 27th when he said the ballistic program, missile program will go on, and I am not going to close it. So possibly the nuclear weapons program will go on, while people are having other communication which is coming on the social media, which I don't agree. I think there is no way this regime, till the time Khamenei was alive or the top leadership was alive, would have done it. Now, these talks were getting extended. You know, at the last minute, something will happen and they were getting postponed. They were waiting for a very right, opportune time. And please understand, the Israelis and Americans have not hit at the civilian target, while people are talking of a school being hit. I will not like to talk about it right now. But the fact is, they had enough intelligence to know where the entire command and control structure was coming for a conference. The first strike which happened, actually, if you recall, there were 3 places hit at the same time on the same place in the same moment at 8:15 or something. It was, again, generally the strikes have happened in the night, but this is the first time it happened in the morning hours, because this is a time when the conference was happening and nearly entire command structure was sitting all together, including the son, who was supposed to be the next possible this thing. So
spiritual head, supreme leader.
Yeah. So this one is the command control centers has been first hit. The second was they needed to take out, that was in Tehran. Then they needed to take out all the ballistic missile systems and the storage systems which were there for carrying out targets, which happened to Tabriz, Qom, Shah and these areas. But when you look at Natanz and Isfahan, this is the place, even last time also, when Lion Rise and Midnight Hammer happened, these were the two out of the four prominent locations of nuclear enrichment sites and the holding areas and the storage sites where the labs and everything is there. They got hit. Last time when they carried out the strikes in Midnight Hammer, they were not able to penetrate enough to reach that depth of 300, because when you carry out the bunker busters which go down, the second one has to actually go right on top of the head, follow through, and yet they were able to achieve not more than about 240 or 250 feet. The majority, while they were collapsing, which happened, but a large amount of structures continuing to remain in the tunnels which were formed to protect themselves. And that is why, while the program got delayed by few months, and when you say few months, and that is time, if you recall, we're talking about 7 to 8 months, and the figure which I had given was about 10 months. Today, 8 months have happened, right? So the next step, which is very important for them to strike, was the nuclear command. So again, I'll go ballistics, nuclear, and before that, the command and control, and that is how this all strikes have taken. The third element which they are striking now, the fourth one, are the ordnance locations, the factories, the places where manufacturing, the defense industry which is there, which is the holding areas of all this ammunition of ballistics or missiles, the drone systems, and Israel, what Iran today, the second rung leadership or third rung leadership which is going to come, because the second one is going to get wiped off. The third one has to start looking who is one telling them about their details to Israelis and Americans. It is not pure technology, right? A lot of people, even in India, feel that technology is superior. You can achieve everything with technology, but there are human assets which are ensuring the timeline of activity. I'm told that in the last stages, even when he had to meet Larzani, who was closest to Khamenei in terms of state security management, even when he had to go, he used to be blindfolded. So that was a level of secrecy. They were moving time and again, Khamenei from one place to another, and they was always living into bunkers and tunnels, and yet they were able to hit. So therefore, there are intelligence assets which are in place, which are giving time to time information. I will just wind up very quickly back to a talk or point which Tom Cooper was mentioning, and Tom and both of you, I really admire. You guys have been there since 2 o'clock in the studio, and I think they are totally now into the game. The fact is, when you talk about the Shia community, right, in Saudi Arabia and other places, I can tell you that they aren't truly with now Iran. There will be some elements, right? But today the Saudis have been able to actually control, not as a regime, but a quasi modern state which has transitioned from petro-dollar economy to actually looking at a future which is different than what Crown Prince father was having. Times have changed, right? Unfortunately, in Iran, the regime did not change. So I hope I have been able to answer your question.
Yes, you have. And the other fact is that let's not forget 50% of Iran should be happy that this has happened. That's the women, because the regime was very, very strict. There are differences within the IRGC also. There are differences, and it's not just the Shia. What about the Zoroastrians? What about the Avesta? What about the Baloch? What about the Kurds? The Kurds, they're all there, and they are all part of Iran, and they all now should decide which is the direction that they want to actually go ahead and take. Dr. Ranganathan with us, but Anandji, before you, I'll have to go across to Vinod, because Group Captain MJ Vinod has been patiently listening for the last 40 minutes, and we've not had the time or the space to go across to him. Yes, Group Captain, this is all standoffish. What are soldiers going to do when it's all loitering munitions and air defense systems? It's all being fought in the air.
The age of the drone is here. Probably the age of the machine is here. AI is taking a lot of decisions, both in terms of the route to take or the route to take, and the targets to engage, and when to engage, and what is the opportune moment to engage. That said, Anand, I forwarded an article to you which I wrote on 5th of February, and that is the image I put behind me, is how important is the Hormuz. It is more important than probably to Iranians, more than probably having a nuclear weapon because they can completely, decimate the economy of smaller nations, except probably UAE because UAE has a pipeline, Fujairah pipeline, which is not dependent on this Hormuz. Qatar is the largest producer of liquefied natural gas, the LNG. The LNG of the world comes from Qatar,
Yeah.
and those come on very large gas carriers, those gas balloons that you see on a ship. None of them can pass through these narrow three by three lane.
Right.
So
I'm just going to come
that
back
is a
here
major.
as you're explaining. Yeah, please go ahead and talk. Go ahead. Continue, please.
So yeah, that becomes, if this issue is not addressed, a lot of economies will get affected in the Middle East, and subsequently the noise or the hardships will be felt to Far East, right up to Korea, right up to Philippines. These are the countries which do not have any oil at all, and they're completely, totally dependent on oil coming out of Hormuz. 80-90% of their oil of the country, oil is and gas is dependent on this region. So, like General said, all of us have to weigh in to remove this particular, or at least bring this particular regime to some kind of an understanding to say, okay, I will ensure peace and not progress on, obliterating Israel. But the name of the operation is based on Ali ibn Talib's battle, in which they completely
Right.
erased the Jews at that time. So
Right.
I don't know how much of
Right.
the new regime is going to listen to
Right.
saner words.
Now, viewers, actually, what's also happened is that they bombed Dukh. Now, the Iranians have targeted Dukh. Now, for Iran, what happens is they can train their guns across this narrow strait, across all these Arab nations, and they can fire at will. If they can go all the way over Jordan and all the way to Israel, these are all accessible, very accessible. The two questions, and Dr. Ranganathan, as you come in, and then I'll bring in Adrian and Tom back, is one, the China aspect that Dan Pfefferman spoke about and General Pandey also spoke about. China. One is China. We are given to understand they have given missiles to the Iranians. How much will it cost for them? Cost. Okay, that's one part. The other part, the other thing is, what is Iran's nuke threat? The end question. So the nuclear threat for all these regions. Why is it that the Saudis were trying to speak with the Pakistanis and say, let's do a nuclear tech transfer? Yes. Dr. Ranganathan.
Yeah, very briefly, good evening, Anand, and good evening to my fellow panelists. Always, as a layman, very informative discussion amongst experts. But can I just differ with General Pandey when he is sympathetic to Tom and Adrian? They've been in the studio for 6 hours gorging on samosas and dhokla, so I'm not at all sympathetic.
No, they haven't. So they haven't. They haven't.
Oh,
They haven't. They haven't. The samosas and dhoklas are only when you are here.
Okay, but couple of points out here. Number one, let's get one thing straight. Israel is not the aggressor. The aggressor was Iran and its proxies, Hezbollah and Hamas, that perpetrated genocide on Israel on October 7, 2023. Let's get the other thing straight. The fact of the matter is that now the war, the conclusion of it, or the prolonging of it, is completely independent on the decision by Iran. It is wholly and completely on America, because America does not want a war that is dragged on and on. It always loses such wars because of the domestic compulsions that it has, body bags, etc. Vietnam being one example, Afghanistan being another, unlike Russia that can carry on a war interminably, as we've seen already 3 years in Ukraine. That's point number two. Point number three, I'm expecting President Trump to slap 25% tariffs on any country that refuses to buy Russian oil in order to stabilize the world prices to counter the Hormuz blockade. But the fact is, out here, it is going to end very soon for Iran. There is no other choice for America. I'll keep that short.
Well, you're saying that there is no other choice for America except for taking down Iran. But more importantly, Tom and Adrian, we are looking at the oil prices also go up. It's gone up from about $60 a barrel to about $73. So it's gone up $13 in the last 15 days. That's that's how the numbers are showing. How far can it go up? Because for viewers here, 1.5 billion people, petrol, oil, liquefied natural gas is going to cost us a lot. It's going to pinch our pockets. So inflation is something that governments will have to worry about. It also fuels the economies of these countries, which are now going to be locked. Kuwait can't sell its energy. Bahrain can't sell its energy. Qatar can't. Saudi Arabia can't. So they're all going to be worried about what's going to happen. How long is this going to last? And then, of course, the biggest consumer is China. Even if it buys all the oil over the next 30 days, what's it going to do after the next 30 days, Tom and Adrian?
Well, as far as we have checked this morning, how far could the oil price go? And there was even a talk about $120 per barrel. So
that's double. That's double. So
well,
it can go straight up up to $120 per barrel, viewers. That's a lot of money, a lot of pain for a lot of governments, because governments can be toppled because of these oil prices.
Absolutely, because this could cause really widespread recession and economic troubles of unimaginable scale. So again, this is why we both are expecting actually that in the coming days the pressure upon the United States and Israel is going to increase.
I've just got news coming through. The news is that the Iran foreign minister has said no intention of closing the Strait of Hormuz.
Okay.
And
if I may, IRGC said, communicated yesterday that it was closing the Strait of Hormuz.
So clearly, in the last, since yesterday and today, there's a change. The foreign minister has said, I've climbed there. There's a big climb down that's happening. We are not closing the Strait of Hormuz because somewhere Iran now realizes the import or the impact of making a statement or doing something so drastic, what's going to happen. I've got CNN's Matt Egan, who's explaining this entire war in the Middle East and the correlation with oil. Let's just quickly have a look at that.
Anytime there's war in the Middle East, there's a risk of an energy price spike that crushes the economy. The Middle East is the most important region in the world for the supply of energy. Saudi Arabia is the world's leading oil exporter. Now, one of the big concerns is always whether or not there's going to be some sort of a disruption of the flow of oil through the Strait of Hormuz. That's the narrow waterway right off the coast of Iran, where about a fifth of the world's oil consumption flows through each day. And a sustained shutdown of the Strait of Hormuz, that would certainly drive up oil prices, and that would make prices, gasoline in the US and around the world, skyrocket. There's also always the risk of an attack on oil production facilities, especially the ones in Saudi Arabia. But as always, the question is, how long would any supply disruption last? And what, if anything, can be done to offset it? But look, the cost of living is way too high right now. And the last thing the economy needs is an energy crisis.
Sorry, Zaka, I missed you out there. What we're going to do to our viewers, bear with us. I've got Tom Cooper here with me. We've got the wall and we've got the map. Let's try and understand how this entire strikes. How did 200 Israeli aircraft fly over the Tehran airspace, drop those bombs and then come back? So let's game this and understand, does Tehran have no air defense system? And that too, you had the Israeli aircrafts take off from here, Tom, correct? So tell us, and how did this happen? How does this work?
Yeah. Thank you. It's like this. You have the Iranian air defense system is approximately here, around Tabriz, around Tehran, and you have Qom and Esfahan and Karaj. So this is the principal area that, sorry, I forgot further south here, another one. This is the principal areas that are covered by Iranian air defense system. The Israelis now come up from Israel, fly over Syria and Iraq.
Right.
Like this.
So that's how they cleared the airspaces in these regions so that these planes could fly
Exactly. This is why
unobstructed.
no airliners are currently permitted to fly over Iraq and over Syria.
Right.
So over the border between Iraq and Syria, there are US and Israeli tankers waiting for them, and they are refueling them in the air.
In the air, so
Yes.
the on-air, mid-air tankers. Okay, because this is more than a 2,000-kilometer journey that they have to
It
fly.
is
right?
over 1,000 kilometers, 1,700 kilometers to the
1,700
border, so
kilometers.
1,500 kilometers. But the point is this, in order to release their missiles, they have to fly high and fast,
Okay.
which is spending lots of fuel. Therefore, here, either the Israeli or the US tankers from bases in Saudi Arabia come up here and they are waiting for them here in this area.
So that's where the on-air refueling happens over Syria and Iraq airspace.
air over Iraq.
About how many thousand feet high?
Well, 30,000 feet.
30,000 feet plus.
Right?
Okay.
So more, that depends on the weather.
Right.
Generally, tanker aircraft is flying higher. It lowers its boom, and then comes the combat aircraft and refuels from that boom.
Right.
So they connect and they download the fuel.
Right.
So once this has happened, they accelerate, come up to, this is one of the principal launch zones, the other is up here, and they are shooting their air-launched ballistic missiles into Iran, like this, into central Iran. So
All right.
actually, the Israelis barely need to enter the Iranian airspace in order to hit targets deep inside Iran,
Right.
approximately to the line Tehran, Esfahan, Bushehr. So that is this part of the story.
Okay. Now, so let's erase this. Do you want to erase this? Okay. So we're going to erase all of this. And we're going to dive deeper into what's happening in Tehran. Why is it that when they're seeing so many ballistic missiles coming into Tehran, back live on our continuous coverage on this entire war in the Middle East with Iran going head-to-head with America and Israel together. There are plenty of fast-paced developments, and we've got on a rolling coverage through this Sunday, viewers. Israel Defense Forces have released the video of a massive strike on the IRGC headquarters. We begin the headlines at the top of 8 p.m. with this. The IRGC headquarters, which allegedly killed not just the Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, but also IRGC top brass. IDF claims 40 top commanders neutralized in less than 1 minute. Iranian strikes target Dubai's iconic Burj Al Khalifa and the Burj Hotel, along with Dubai Airport and Jebel Ali Seaport. Star Indian shuttler PV Sindhu has a narrow escape at the Dubai Airport, but thanks the authorities and the embassy. Iranian media reports US carrier USS Abraham Lincoln hit by 4 ballistic missiles shortly after IRGC releases video claiming to have downed an American MQ-9 Reaper drone, vows to intensify attacks. Revenge is our duty, Iranian officials say. Amid soaring tensions in West Asia and Iran's closure of the Strait of Hormuz, oil prices surged beyond $75 a barrel, mark up by almost 10% in a single day. Analysts say prices could soon touch the $100 mark, but Iran now says there is no plan to close the Strait of Hormuz. 3 people killed, over 50 injured, including Indian workers in Iranian strikes on the UAE country's defense ministry says it has intercepted 165 ballistic missiles from Iran. Iran's missiles still penetrate the Iron Dome. Central Israel sounded, leaving at least 5 people dead and several others injured. Israel claims deliberate attack on civilian areas, a hypersonic missile used, reportedly. Frenzied crowd lays siege to the U.S. consulate in Karachi, resulting in massive clashes with U.S. security forces. Reports indicate at least 10 locals killed and many others injured. Protesters also tried to storm the consulate in Lahore. Thousands take to the streets across several Indian cities to mourn the death of Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. Protesters also gather outside the U.S. consulate in Chennai to protest the killing of Iran's supreme leader. Thank you for staying with us. The Middle East is now engulfed in a full-scale regional war. In a stunning development, Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei has been eliminated in a joint US-Israeli strike on Tehran. The operation, codenamed Epic Fury, is targeting Iran's nuclear sites. In retaliation, Tehran has unleashed a Fateh Khyber, and with that, the pledge that revenge is their duty. Waves of ballistic missiles at Tel Aviv and American bases across the Gulf. U.S. aircraft carrier USS Abraham Lincoln has also been attacked by Iran as part of its response against Washington. And for now, Ayatollah Arafi has been named the interim supreme leader. The conflict has spilled into the heart of the Gulf, with Dubai under direct attack. Flights from Dubai International Airport are halted as missile debris falls near the Palm Jumeirah and Burj Al Arab. Other Gulf nations, including Qatar, Bahrain, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia and Oman, are also under fire. Now, let's try and take a look at the areas targeted by Iran. There is Tel Aviv that's been targeted in Israel, the Israel financial center. There is also Ali Al Salem, that's the air base in Kuwait, the US 5th Fleet stationed in Bahrain, and that's why there has been sightings and drops, and Manama. Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar, and that's why Doha. Al Dhafra Air Base, this is in the UAE, that's where Dubai and Abu Dhabi have come under the radar. And of course, Riyadh in Saudi Arabia has also been targeted. There is also the Erbil Air Base in Iraq. So there are pictures. Clearly, they've been targeted. The Iranian point of view or claim has been that what was targeted was just the American air bases, not civilian areas in these countries. But there has been a lot of debris, explosions, and of course UAVs misdirected that have all come there and landed in civilian areas, causing damage, causing a certain level of alarm and panic in some of these areas, and residents then questioning, where do we go, how safe are we? Now, US bases in the Middle East have been struck. We've got big news coming through. The Al Salem naval base in Abu Dhabi has also been targeted by Iranian UAVs. No casualties have been reported, but pictures and update coming through at this point is that the Al Salem base in Abu Dhabi, naval base, has also now been targeted. There you go. These are pictures of an Omani tanker, oil tanker, that was pounded by Iranians as it tried to enter and cross the Strait of Hormuz. Sanjay Suri now joins us live. Sanjay, are you safe and well? It's been a long, tiring night for you too. But more importantly, your safety matters. How are the locals on ground? Whereabouts are you? What's the Israeli sentiment currently?
Well, I'm here in Tel Aviv, and Tel Aviv was hit last night. We know that one woman in her 40s was killed in a raid on an apartment block. A number of people were injured, and that entire block was razed. It was destroyed quite massively. Since then, there's been another attack on Beit Shemesh that you referred to, and the death toll there has risen from 5 to 8, and a number of the others injured are in quite critical condition. And there are some reports that the Fatah hypersonic missile was used here, as you were suggesting. So Israel is very much under fire. There are sirens sounding here from time to time. People are advised to take shelter. And given that the civilian population of Israel is, in effect, also a military population, people are rather disciplined in obeying those commands and directives. So Israel very much under fire, as expected. What is not expected is what countries like the UAE are going through, or Bahrain, Oman as well now, Kuwait. That is the surprise. They are quite unprepared for this kind of thing in all sorts of ways. They don't have matching air defenses in place. What is more, the civilian population is not mentally prepared for that kind of thing. In Israel, everyone is ready for this kind of thing. This is a country with people who seem to have nerves of steel. They can take anything. They can do it with their chin up and with a smile. This is not a shock here, although the problem is serious, but the shock and the fear is very much more across the Gulf region.
True, and they're showing a lot of character, a lot of courage, and that's also because, Sanjay, quickly before we go across to our guest, that's also because they've been a regime that has always called for death to Israel, wiping out of the Jews, along with calling for death to America, and has built so many proxies that has wanted the end of Jews and Israel. And Israel has borne all that. But on the other hand, there are also questions being raised, the truth behind the Israeli intention, that this entire greater Israel narrative is being talked about. And did Israel really want this for larger peace or for trying to expand its footprint in and around this entire region?
At the moment, Anand, this is not about regional expansion. This is about Iran. And, for Israel, Iran has appeared an existential threat. And there were three aims in sight for the Israelis, naturally working and fighting this together with the Americans.
Right.
Number one, a regime change. And of course, we've seen the Khamenei has been killed, as have been a lot of top people within the regime and at the top level of the military. Second, to seek to neutralize the nuclear capacities of Iran. And again, we have seen bombing at Isfahan and at other locations. The third is logistically the trickiest, which is to seek to neutralize the ballistic missiles. Of these, Iran has several thousand. They're scattered all over the place. They are being fired, and they are managing to get past defenses, even past Israel's three-layered defense of the arrow, then the David sling, and then the Iron Dome. So
Right.
these have got through and have breached these defenses quite successfully, and we are just into the second day of this war yet.
Right, because they, as our military experts said, they are using a very, very smart strategy. The Iranians, they are no pushovers, and they are quite intelligent and advanced in their military technology, because they have also been gaming scenarios and perpetually been in conflict mode. It turns it, when you're constantly in war mode, you think perhaps differently. Sanjay Suri, stay safe. It was good to see you outdoors, and let's hope that it's a quieter day, quieter evening as we this Sunday for you too. Stay safe, and great work done on ground. Great work done on ground. The only Bharatiya reporter on ground in Israel right now is part of the News 18 family, and so proud of you, Sanjay. Thank you. Stay safe.
Thank you.
Let's go straight across to General VP Malik. General Saab, Jai Hind, Namaste. We also have Lieutenant General KJ Dhillon and also KJS Dhillon and also Sushant Sareen with us. Just an update coming through from the US Central Command. CENTCOM is saying that an Iranian Jamaran-class corvette was struck by US forces during the start of Operation Epic Fury. The ship is currently sinking to the bottom of the Gulf of Oman at a Chabahar port. And Iranian army members of the Revolutionary Guard and police must lay down their weapons. That's the call that's coming from the US Army. So, ये regime palat ke satta badal ke rahenge is something that the Americans are very, very determined on. But Iran are no pushovers, General Malik. What should Bharat do? What should this region do? How do you see this escalating in the coming days? Your wisdom.
Jai Hind, Anand, and thank you for getting me on your panel. I see another soldier also with me on the panel with his yellow turban, very smart man. Yes, the fact is that it has been an Israeli insecurity has been the major cause of whatever has been going on now for the last 50 years. And Iran has been causing that, and they have been using Hezbollah, Hamas, Houthis, etc. Not only to Israel, but also to some other countries like the Saudi Arabia, Houthis are fighting there. Now, Israel and USA have, for the last 1 year, they have been indulging earlier in the coercive diplomacy, and now they have got involved in the armed coercion since the June 25 strikes last year. Earlier, the objective was nuclear facilities, but now it's quite obvious, and they are openly saying it is for regime change. My own feeling is that regime change is not so easy. And regime change, particularly a regime which has been there for the last 45 years, and well entrenched, they have their own layers of command and control. They also have their own layers of armed forces. So as you notice that within about 36 hours now they have changed their supreme leader. Somebody else has taken over. So, and that gives you an impression that this regime change is not going to be, despite the fact that some public in Iran is unhappy and they are suffering because of the economic struggle that they are having, but yet regime change doesn't come about so. And therefore, we may see for the next few days that this whole thing will get intensified, the war will get intensified, and we will have more casualties on both sides. And we will also have, of course, the economic losses and the economic suffering in all these countries.
But we have
As
the
far
Iranian.
as-
General Saab, sorry, I'm interrupting you because the latest update is that the Iranians have come out and said, the Iranian foreign minister has said that they don't have any plans to block the Strait of Hormuz. So this is different or variant to the IRGC's claim that they will close the Strait of Hormuz. But this just happened about 10-15 minutes back. We got this update. Yes, please continue.
Noted on it, but noted. The fact is that, as you know, notice most of the shipping on their own, they have stopped going in that area. And in any case, all the airlines have stopped going into the Gulf region altogether. So it's going to be an economic loss for most people. After all, we know that almost 40%, 22%, sorry, of the oil in the world is going through this area. And 40% of the Indian energy also comes through this area. But I was talking to you, the other major thing that is going to happen and is going to affect for a long time, the Shia-Sunni divide.
Yeah.
That would definitely increase, as you notice from the kind of things that are happening
Right.
in
General Malik.
in West
he's back.
Asia.
Ji.
And so therefore, this is one, as far as India is concerned, of course, it's keeping itself away and trying to talk to both parties. But the fact is that the kind of things that are happening in Pakistan, we have to be careful within our own country. And the next worry would be how to save or how to bring back our people from this. We have a very large number of people, 9 million people in this area. Even Iran has about 1,200 students from J&K.
Yes.
So that is a large number that we have got. And they would naturally be crying for evacuation.
I think
how long it will continue, I think it will continue for some time, but it may come to an end when Iran may have the intention, but may not have the capacity to take it further. So
Right.
that is what we have to see.
Somewhere.
How soon and how long will they continue with the kind of capacity that they have
Right.
with them at the moment.
Is there a greater intent? General Malik, my final question to you, sir, and then I'll bring in Lieutenant General K.J. Dhillon and Sushant Sareen also. Is there a larger intent here? Not just wiping out Iran's nuclear program or ballistic manufacturing capacity and bring them down and peg them back and hold them there. But is there a larger US game that has China on its radar?
So that will be effect, but at the moment, I think their major aim is to change of regime. You know, and once the regime is changed, that will result into some kind of another advantage that they may have as far as China is concerned. But at the moment, I'm quite sure it is only regime change. And also, mind you, the USA has already declared that after the regime change, they do not want to step into it, and they want people of Iran to take over the situation.
Right. Now the OPEC nations have come out and said, General Dhillon, that they are going to additionally produce an additional 206,000 barrels a day. The OPEC nations includes Russia, includes Algeria, includes Saudi Arabia. So these are all nations. So Russian oil comes back into play now. What happens here? Then what happens to the war against Ukraine and trying to curb Russian impact there?
See, these are the booties of the war. You know, everyone will try and make the best out of the worst situation, and OPEC nations are not going to be left out. So they will produce more on the pretext that more the oil is not coming through the Persian Gulf or Strait of Hormuz, as Jal Malik very rightly said. So they will try and produce more so that they can make a quick buck out of it. Now, one or two points. I totally agree with Jal Malik about the regime change and the intentions of the USA. And as also, we very rightly said that regime change don't happen like this. Unless you have the boots on ground, unless you have the people on ground, controlling the countryside, it is very difficult to exercise the regime change. What will happen in this particular case is, for the sake of it, somebody will be brought in and put in the place as a person who is control of the government. The whole of countryside, the IRGC people, the fighters will be on all over the country, and there is going to be a civil war. The civil war is the worst thing which will happen, and we've seen in the past also, Americans leave the country in the lurch for themselves to find for themselves. So I'm afraid that type of situation will happen, and Iranians have a stomach for long haul. We have seen Iran-Iraq war, they fought for 10 years. So if the civil war happens, they will. It's in the DNA of the Israeli soldier, Israeli man, to face the hardships and fight for what he feels is right. But there are enough people in Iran who have been wronged by the present regime, who are keeping quiet as of now. They would raise their voice once they realize the present regime is falling. But that does not give them any command and control. There is no structure, there is no hierarchy, there are no commanders, there are no leaders. Individual people raising their voice will not bring in the regime change. For regime change, you need a network, you need a commander, you need a leader, you need a vision. And unfortunately, that is not in the near future.
Will someone beyond the son of the Shah emerge? Shah Raza Pahlavi doesn't evoke so much of confidence, but someone within the IRGC, someone within this entire leadership who's a little more pliant. They still have a religious clerical head who's restored, is there, but perhaps is a little more pliant. Like Maduro's next in line was the one who's now become very pliant with the Americans, and all is well in Venezuela, perceptibly. But I'm just saying something like that. Is it possible in Iran? Then that means, all right, you still have a clerical head, but that clerical head is not so far gone or anti-US like the other. He will perhaps wave a little bit of a rhetorical wand for some time, but then back off slowly. We have to wait and watch what actually comes about as this. But I'm also alarmed, viewers, irrespective of both sides are going to hurt. And heart goes out to what's happening in Iran and to a lot of people to whom the Khamenei meant a lot. Despite others believing that he was a radical dictator who denied women their rights, etc., etc. But there are those who thought that he's the spiritual head of the Shias. So there's there. But what allows a nation like America to decide, oh, I don't like you guys, I'm going to come and pound you, and I'm going to get away with it? Now, where's the rule and where's the sanctity in that? The same Americans tend to be sanctimonious when a Bharat or a China would do the same and say, oh, I don't like this country, I want to bomb it because to secure my own interests. The same thing Russia is doing, saying I'm doing this because I want to secure my interests, but Russia is the villain of the world. So it's quite ironical that one nation gets away with doing all that and becomes a hero while the others are all villains. How is that possible? The same question to also we have with us Major General Yaakov Amidror. With us, many people are saying Israel was itching for this because Israel has always wanted this fight, and they wanted the Khamenei gone, and they finally got the Americans to bite after 3 decades of pleading and pleading with them. Would you agree with this, that this entire greater Israel that is also embedded on the Israeli Defense Forces, that's the larger agenda of Israel?
Not at all. Israel didn't attack Jordan, Israel didn't attack Egypt, Israel didn't attack other countries which are closer to Israel. It is Iran that in the last 45 years, talking, speaking, planning, investing, and build around Israel ring of fire. Who financed Hezbollah, which controlled Lebanon till the last war? Who financed Hamas, which initiated the 7th of October barbarian attack? Who financed Islamic Jihad, which was part of this attack? Who financed the Houthis in Yemen, which attacked Israel? We didn't know who are the Houthis are. And they decided to attack us on behalf of Iran. who brought the militias into Syria and to Iraq? Iran, not Israel. And it is not in Tel Aviv, and not in Jerusalem, but in Tehran. There was a big clock calling for the destruction of Israel before 27. And Khamenei spoke about it all the time, that Israel should be destroyed totally because of religious and dreams of Iran to be the superpower of the Middle East. And yes, we had an open account with the Iranians since they built the Ring of Fire around Israel, since they made all the terror operations inside Israel and outside Israel. Remember, even in India, I remember myself traveling to India to speak with the Indian authorities when the Iranians succeeded to recruit an Iranian citizen to put a bomb in a car which belongs to the Israeli embassy in Delhi. So, all due respect, it was not initiated by Israel. Israel reacted to the huge plan of the Iranians in the last 45 years to destroy Israel. The fact that we are successfully now succeeding to kill those leaders, to kill these commanders of the Iranian military forces, it's something that we worked many years to achieve because we understood that if they will not be stopped, the existence of Israel will be under a threat. Remember, we brought the archive of the nuclear project of Iran from Tehran. It's a very clear project to produce at first stage 5 nuclear bombs. That's what they prepared to do.
Right.
So from our point of view, the fact that we are acting against the regime in Tehran is a self-defense action that we are doing because they said, no, it's not that we are saying about them, they said that their goal is to destroy Israel. That is not going to happen, and for that you have to fight.
True. Major General Amit Ror, please stay with us. We've got the Deputy Foreign Minister of Iran speaking, Sayed Khatibzadeh, speaking with CNN. And he has said that President Trump crossed a very dangerous red line after US-Israeli attacks killed the country's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. He's also said, and I'm quoting him, if President Trump didn't want to see Iran hitting back, President Trump should not have started this war. So this is what they're saying. So they are not backing off. They are going to give it their all. And in the past, they have said this, Burzin Wagmar, that Iran, if the Khamenei regime has to go around us. So do you see that happening? And I'm asking you this, Burzin, because your ancestors have roots in Persia. And this is one of those persecuted groups in Iran who never had a voice for the last 5 decades. And their sacred flame is safe in Bharat, in Udwara. Burzin.
Iran's bluster is all of a piece with its beleaguered, embattled paranoia, Shia paranoia, which we see playing out in these scattergun approach attacks on civilians, including Oman. And I just wonder what Badr al-Busaidi, the Omani foreign minister, who was practically rehearsing from a Iran script, never mind an Omani script, was giving out that CBS Evening News interview that there is light at the end of the tunnel and that somehow within 3 months everything could be sorted out, including inspection sites undertaken and the rest of it. So that would be my immediate response to that. Another qualifier, please. Russia is not an OPEC member. It's a non-OPEC trading partner. And since, just a little levity, if you please, since we've been going through a lot in the last few days, there is talk of India claiming refunds for, well, tariffs from DC. I just wonder if I could bring the attention of Indians coming from Iranian studies to the 20,000 crore scam, which in independent Indian history is practically second after the Telgi Papers scam, which took place with UCO Bank Calcutta and the Indo-Iran Real Rupee trade scam, and which is still undergoing investigation from your enforcement directorate in New Delhi. So maybe it's time to garner funds on both fronts as such. So I'll leave it at that for the moment.
True. And you make it's not just levity, it makes practical sense. Everybody wants their pound of flesh, we just want our money back. So, so some wry humor there in a serious conversation, viewers, please pardon that, but we couldn't resist. 3 US service members have been killed, 5 seriously injured during an operation against Iran. The Pentagon has now confirmed. The Israeli Defense Forces have now come out and said that they have just taken out, this is what the Bus Militia, or they've said the interim regime's general staff headquarters for internal security. So now they're now going after the Bus Militia and the police, because that's about 1 million strong. That's the one that polices the streets. That's the one that keeps these protesters at bay. And that's the ones who Trump has also blamed, has shut down nearly 32,000 protesters to cull down this entire protest, the wave of protests that started brewing about 2.5 weeks ago. Sushant Sareen, thank you for your patience. How do you see this situation? From which perspective would you see? Would you want to look at it tactically in this region? What's going to happen in the next 10, 15 days? Or what's the larger end game here? Thank you for your patience.
No, not at all. Yeah, I understand. But Anand, look, let me just start by pushing back something you asked earlier. Why are the Americans doing what they are doing? And, you quoted all the laws and the rules. There's a simple answer. The Americans are doing it because they can do it. Now, if you had bought into the propaganda, then it's a you problem, not an American problem. So I think we need to be realistic about how the real world works and, live according to the reality of life rather than what it should be. It's never what it should be. Second, I think from purely from this regime change thing, look, I think I'm now quite convinced that even if you cannot effect a complete regime change, even within the regime you can't make a change. I think Israel, the United States, and perhaps even the Gulf states who have been targeted by Iran, I think they will want to emasculate Iran to a point where it is no longer any kind of a threat to any of these countries. So I don't see this campaign stop anytime soon unless Iran capitulates, because I don't think any of these countries is going to tolerate, Iran, which can target them the way it has been targeting them. Third, I think there are some serious lessons for India. In the sense we have been, and I'm sitting in the presence of 2 very distinguished generals, and I'm going to shoot my mouth off. They can challenge me later on. Both of them are very respected people. But look, I think we really need to rethink our defense planning. I think some changes are being made, but the nature of warfare has changed. If I'm not mistaken, both of these gentlemen are infantry officers. And I'm going to say that, look, the day of the infantry is over. It's only after you have won a war, the infantry has to go and capture a place. Otherwise, wars are going to be fought the way they're being fought in most parts of the world nowadays.
Largely standoff positions, yeah.
There are some very, very serious lessons for us. Third, on this whole evacuation bid, I think General Malik was talking about, look, frankly speaking, if the Indian government had issued advisories weeks in advance, people should take those advisories seriously. Now, you cannot bloody expect the government of India in the middle of war, when missiles are flying, airspaces are closed, that you are now going to send ships or aircraft to evacuate people. You can't do it. So either people take these advisories seriously and evacuate in time, and then it's the government's responsibility. But in the middle of a conflict, which everybody was seeing coming, and you were staying out there because let me stay for another few days, then too bad. Now you please wait until this damn war ends, right? It is not the, why should Indian soldiers and Indian security personnel put their lives at risk because you did not follow instructions in time? Then I'll just make a couple of more points, right? Just allow me. The Shia-Sunni divide which General Malik is worried about, frankly, it doesn't worry me. That divide has been there for 1500 years. It'll carry on for another 500 for all we care, and it might not be a bad thing. But I suspect...
General, they will coming to you after Sushant completes.
There is a possibility of something good coming out of this conflict. And let me try and explain to you how. One, if Iran gets a more reasonable kind of a regime, which is at peace with its neighbors and with the rest of the world, which is ready to march in step with the rest of the world, and does not do the kind of stuff which the current regime has been doing. I think that opens up a lot of space for India. If sanctions are lifted on Iran, the Iranian oil comes on the market, it cools down the global oil markets, it opens up avenues for India to build its connectivity projects in Iran. Second, um, I think if the Arab states were to now become more amenable to the Abraham Accords, I think that would usher in an era of peace in the Middle East.
Right.
And in an Indian perspective, it will be really good because then some of the other very ambitious connectivity projects that we are thinking about, in particular IMEC, which requires the Saudis to be on board, which requires Jordan and UAE already is on board. The Saudis are, vacillating on that. I think those projects come through, which are good for everybody in the region.
Right.
And
So
I think,
Sushantji,
the one country which really suffers the final outcome, apart from Iran, Iran might still recover. I hope it's the Turks, who have been the biggest troublemakers in the region. And I think if the Turks were to receive their comeuppance as a result of the new realignments which are going to take place in this region, I think it will be good for India, it will be good for Israel.
Now, Shahid 136 drone, just big development coming through. General Dhillon, your comments after that. The Saudi Arabian prince has come out and said, and the government has said, they are readying a response. If there are any more attacks by the Iranians in this region, they will respond militarily. And we're given to understand the Crown Prince has spoken to President Donald Trump. But this is another big news coming through. We're going to take that. An Iranian Shahid 136 drone has targeted an Emirati oil rig in the Persian Gulf. Now, this is in the Persian Gulf. This is not in the Strait of Hormuz necessarily. So, Adrian and Tom Cooper are with us in the studio. I'm just going to walk up here and you gentlemen can sit there. I'll just mark this out and what this actually means. I'll just see if I can. All right, let's just cancel this, delete that, and come here and explore this. Now, this is the Persian Gulf, viewers. It's not the Strait of Hormuz. So this is where it becomes. So this is the Strait of Hormuz. So this is Hormuz. But when it is targeted something in the Persian Gulf, what does that mean? Does this now mean the Iranians are itching for escalation? If this is in this region, if it is in this region, does that mean it becomes an escalation? Will the NATO nations now also move in? Because USS Abraham Lincoln has been targeted with ballistic missiles. Tom and Adrian, your thoughts?
Well, NATO is not going to become involved. NATO has its hands full with Russia and Ukraine already, at least the European part of the NATO. In regards of this attack on oil rigs, within the IGC, there are two streams. One is for militarization of such rigs and of islands in the Persian Gulf. The other is against it.
Right.
Back in the 1980s, they have learned the lesson that that arming or striking such facilities is a bad idea.
Right. Right.
Now it could be. This could be two things. One is that somebody in the chain of command has lost control, or that the unit in question has no idea what is going on, so they have used this UAV on their own. The other is that that there is an order from Tehran to do so, to strike the rig in question.
Right.
Now we do not have the details about who is ordering what.
Yes, we don't have those details, but it's an Emirati, so the UAE have now been dragged into it. General Dhillon, your thoughts?
Yeah, Anand, first about this Emirati oil rig being attacked by a drone or something. In the previous part of your program, about an hour ago, it was being told that whatever is hitting the Gulf countries, these are all debris of the drones or the missiles which have been intercepted. And I was of the opinion, debris not always fall on the airports or the five-star hotels. And now in this case, on the oil rig, they fall everywhere, including the sea and the deserts. These are not the debris. These are very well targeted attacks on the installations to bring in the Gulf countries in the conflict. Now, having said this, I want to go back to point which Mr. Sushant Sreen, a great friend, who made about infantry probably no more required. Yes, looking at the way things are happening in Gulf, he is right in saying that. But if you look at Indian borders, starting from Jammu, going right up to Siachen, and then turning eastwards along the Great Himalayas, going right up to Arunachal, then turning south against, right across opposite Myanmar, everywhere, wherever we have a dispute, is a hilly terrain, is a high altitude terrain, is a jungle terrain. And those are the places where holders are keepers, and those are the places which are active live borders.
Right.
So infantry is very much required in Indian context. Let your viewers not get away with the idea that infantry is a thing of the past. Infantry was there in the past, infantry there is today. Infantry will remain relevant in Indian context, especially in the mountainous and jungle terrains where we have the live borders and live disputes with two nuclear neighbors who are not our friends.
Absolutely, absolutely. Point well made, General Saab. And like I said, Sushant Sareen has this habit of tickling the generals and the soldiers with comments. So please don't take it.
He's a very good friend. He's a very good friend.
Yeah. So that's one. The other part is change the dynamics. Major General Amit Roar, your thoughts, the fact that an Emirati tanker has now been stuck in the Persian Gulf. It's not just even the Strait of Hormuz. It's happened in the Persian Gulf. What does this then do? Because in the recent past, Saudi Arabia and the UAE have had a little bit of a run-in. Will this now bring them together? And if Saudi Arabia says it's backing Bahrain, UAE and all the other countries for whatever response, including Oman, and with its full might, how do the dynamics in this region change?
We are now in the middle of this change. You heard the MBS from Saudi Arabia saying something about warning the Iranians not to continue. I hope that will bring them together, MBS and MBZ, to speak about the future of the Gulf countries. It's the interest of the Gulf countries, and indirectly or indirectly, it's the interest of India and Israel as well. The more they will be united, it will be easier to deal with the Iranian threat in the future, if you'll be a threat, and to bring the economy into the scene by uniting both the Emirates and Saudi Arabia is part of economic line going from India into the Mediterranean through Israel. But I want to say something about the situation now in Iran.
Yes, please.
Because from this reaction of Iran, I believe that the Iranians understand that they are facing a huge problem. And I don't believe that this is a mistake, that someone took the initiative. It was done by those who are controlling the Iranian forces, and it was an Iranian decision.
Right.
And I think that they slowly will have to understand that they don't have answer to the united capabilities of Israel and the United States of America, or better to say, America and the State of Israel. And they will have to make decision. Are they ready to continue, and we will continue to kill and to destroy part of their capabilities, or they will come to a conclusion that it is better to compromise and to understand that in the present situation, they cannot win the war. They can continue the war. They can make many harm to countries around them, like what they did into the rig of the Emirates in the Gulf, but they cannot win the war.
Right. We've just got more updates. Viewers, if I'm looking down on our phone and laptop just to get more updates. There are 2-3 updates. We'll try and give it to you. Burzine Wagmar coming to you, and General Malik, thank you for your patience, sir. Coming back to you across. The IDF has just now said that they've initiated a wave of strikes in the heart of Tehran. So it's fresh strikes. Again, it's a night of, pounding that the Iranians are going to get. And there is... the Israel Air Force has initiated a wave of strikes in Tehran. Interception attempts are ongoing. That means they are now going after the internal infrastructure and to ensure a total breakdown of the regime hold, even internally within Iran. And they're going to stretch Iran thin. That's what it looks like in terms of the might of the assault. Meanwhile, U.S. Army is saying that the USS Lincoln was not hit by Iranian missiles. The Lincoln continues. In fact, the missiles didn't even come close. So calling out each other's bluff is also happening now. So 4 ballistic missiles fired, etc. Sorry, it's not happening. Lincoln continues to launch aircraft in support of CENTCOM's relentless air campaign to defend American people by eliminating threats from the Iranian regime. Clearly, they're not going to allow their aircraft carrier to be hit, because if that's hit, then it will be a huge victory for the Iranians and a loss of face perhaps for the most powerful military in the world. But General Malik, are the Iranians running out of time? When I say Iranians, the Khamenei and the IRGC, are they running out of time, sir, here? And is this something which other nations will look at in terms of uncharted territory in wargaming, what the Americans and the Israelis have done this time?
Well, there is no doubt that as the events are showing that the whole war is getting intensified for the next few days, at least one can see that. And the Arab countries are more likely to get together. You know, you were mentioning about the Saudi Arabia and the UAE, which have some kind of a divide in the area of Yemen. But I think they will get over that, and they will sooner or later, they will all fight unitedly. At the moment, they're all dependent on the USA as well as Israel for doing all the damage that is being done to Iran.
Right.
But if required, as it is, they are giving their basis for them to operate, and if required, they will probably get into the war themselves. But let's hope that it doesn't happen.
Right.
I just want to mention one point about Shia-Sunni divide. And Sushant, friend that he is, he's always trying to tickle the soldiers, as you said correctly. You know, the point is that Shia-Sunni divide in countries like South Asia and all can be a headache for us, because it can cause internal security problems. And it is happening in Pakistan. It can easily happen in India. You know the areas where they are in majority, like Kargil itself. They are a huge majority they are in. And similarly in the area of Leh Ladakh also. And so these can cause, after all, they're all emotional people. At the moment, they're all united because their spiritual head has been assassinated.
Yeah.
And that can cause internal security problems, as it is happening in Pakistan.
Right.
But coming back to the war, yes, as I said earlier, sooner or later, I believe, and that's what I feel, that Iran will run out of capacity to continue with the war.
Right.
And that is what we have to see, how long will it take. And that, of course, would be a great advantage for the people who are fighting against them.
Right. Burzin Wagmar had a comment to make. I'm going to get up and then just refocus our focus when we come back after a break. But Burzin, after your comment. Yes, Burzin.
Yeah. You mentioned about a victory for the Iranians. Has anyone factored in, should the IRGC Navy, which is manning the Persian Gulf waters and Strait of Hormuz, and very adept since the Iran-Iraq war days at laying mines or driving kamikaze boats towards US naval destroyers, were to undertake a hit, they will bring on Trump's full wrath. It'll be all gloves off. Not that any of the gloves are even on just now as we speak, but I do not see it as a victory for the Iranians, not even a Pyrrhic one, but it will be the beginning of the end of this regime in more ways than one. That's point number one. And point number two, which leads away from my point number one, because we have factored this in as Iran analysts, Anand, the bunkers theory. You see, these attacks, wanton attacks here, there, everywhere, Dubai airport, Bahrain hotels, so on and so forth, is to sensationalize and be audacious and to make GCC allies quiver nervously, because they know Iran is a regional heavyweight. And this is what the regime has thought out, which we have worked out too.
Right.
Based on this bizarre, perverse notion they have. Just think, Anand, they feel that by attacking the GCC would put pressure on Trump to save our skins and therefore come back to the talks and resume the talks, and therefore Tehran would walk into the room this time for talks a bit more triumphantly, making stronger demands and digging their heels in. I mean, I don't know which planet the Iranians are on, but I do know then again, because they are apocalyptic, millenarian-minded Shias who will go down, which is precisely what happened to Khamenei. Maddeningly indecisive and ineffectual as a ruler, he could never compromise the raison d'etre of the regime to which he was wedded since 1979. And therefore, this is why the talks have forestalled also at Geneva and elsewhere, because it questions the very core identity and sovereignty and pride of the Islamic Revolution on which everything has been built, and it would unravel. This is the bonkers theory that they have been proposing and which we have worked out, and they actually still believe that they can bring Trump back to talks by throwing a few bombs here, there in Dubai and Kuwait and elsewhere. Fat chance that is happening.
Right. This time around, I think somewhere Trump had tried to delay they've come with a plan. There's a plan and it's a 10-day blueprint. In 10 days, want a sequencing that could happen. And somewhere, if you look at Shah Raza Pahlavi, he seems to be outing the plan farther and faster than anybody else, because he keeps telling the people in Iran, get ready. I'll tell you when to start moving. Then he turns around and says, do this, because now this is going to happen. So he's as good as outing the entire blueprint for the common person. But is that, there's a larger game too. Viewers, being very honest with you, was asked to take a break about 15 minutes ago. We just have about 7-8 minutes left here on this broadcast before we hit top of 9 p.m. I thank all our guests joining from outside of the studio. Before we take a break, this is what we're going to do now. We're going to now start to broaden the focus. You see, this is where the activity is happening. But these are nations who are watching closely. Turkey, there is China here, and Russia here. These are the ones who are going to look at what's going to happen here. And these developments here are going to impact them very, very strongly. Why? How? We'll tell you along with our ears to the ground with Sanjay Suri when we come back. Stay with us.
Viewers, the war is on. The war is on in the Middle East, and it is only widening by the minute. And it was expected that the Iranian regime would fold, but it hasn't. It has decided to dig its heels deep into the ground, and it is fighting with its back to the wall. Unprecedented visuals coming out from the Middle East, viewers, today. We will first begin with the most emblematic picture that we were expecting to see, or we would have expected to see, but perhaps not today, in the next few days. But viewers, unfortunately for Ayatollah Khamenei, the first visuals that are coming out from Iran are of his own decapitation. These, viewers, are the IRGC headquarters. This is where somehow, God knows how, Ayatollah was present in the most expected location. He was not supposed to be there, viewers. Anyone else would have decided not to be at the most obvious site, the site where perhaps the Americans and the Israelis would target first. Why he was there, we don't know. Did someone give him away? We don't know. But the fact is, viewers, in the first wave, in what was being called the preemptory attack by the United States and Israel, Ayatollah Khamenei's end came. For about 8 hours, Iran refused to confirm. It took President Trump on Truth Social to come out and say that Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, had been decapitated in a strike that had been conducted by Israeli and American forces. 40 bunker busters pummeled this headquarters. It's in the heart of Tehran. As I said, viewers, it was the most obvious site. Why the Ayatollah chose to be there, we don't know. But we do know that with him went a number of other senior leaders. And you can see these buildings basically being reduced to rubble within seconds. The impact was so devastating that for a mile around this building, viewers, you can see that road there. All those cars zipping past, but within minutes, seconds, entire area was covered in a pall of smoke. Nothing was left, viewers, of that site. And with him went Ayatollah Khamenei. 40 years he had been ruling Iran. His hold was a stranglehold. The people of Iran feared him. 50% of the population hated him. But he hung on there, viewers. He hung on only to be removed in this unseemly fashion by multiple strikes that were conducted in what was described as a preemptive.
Yeah, this is a really new and big step by the Crown Prince here to authorize the possibility of Saudi response if Iran attacks Saudi Arabia again. He called their attacks yesterday and in the early hours of today cowardly. Attacks by Iran were cowardly because Iran knew, the Crown Prince said, Iran knew that Saudi airspace was not being used to attack Iran, and this has incensed him. There have been attacks around the capital here that have been intercepted. There was an attack near a military airfield in the north of the country. There have been attacks further east, much closer to the Persian Gulf, much closer to Iran. They've been repelled so far, but the Crown Prince has said that because of Iran's actions, he is putting the country, Saudi Arabia's security first, the safety of its territory, the safety of its citizens, the safety of its residents. He's putting those things first. And for that reason, he says, he is authorizing the right and the military here to respond if they are attacked by Iran. And also we heard from the Foreign Ministry here on their Twitter feed last night that the Crown Prince had a telephone conversation with President Trump, and in that conversation the Crown Prince had full support from President Trump. This is how the Saudis were reporting it. Full support from President Trump for how they should respond. And this is yet another example of how Iran has turned these Gulf states here, these very powerful, militarily strong Gulf states, from being bystanders in Israel and the United States attacks on Iran into now potential participants. It ratchets up the fluidity of the situation here, the dynamic of what is happening. People here in Saudi Arabia are concerned about what happens next, but not as worried and not as under as much threat as some of the Gulf neighbors that are closer to Iran. And the Crown Prince has spoken with them and promised those countries like Qatar, like Bahrain, like the United Arab Emirates of support as they go through, all these countries go through this together.
Viewers, the war is on. The war is on in the Middle East, and it is only widening by the minute. And it was expected that the Iranian regime would fold, but it hasn't. It has decided to dig its heels deep into the ground, and it is fighting with its back to the wall. Unprecedented visuals coming out from the Middle East, viewers, today. We will first begin with the most emblematic picture that we were expecting to see, or we would have expected to see, but perhaps not today, in the next few days. But viewers, unfortunately for Ayatollah Khamenei, the first visuals that are coming out from Iran are of his own decapitation. These, viewers, are the IRGC headquarters. This is where somehow, God knows how, Ayatollah was present in the most expected location. He was not supposed to be there, viewers. Anyone else would have decided not to be at the most obvious site, the site where perhaps the Americans and the Israelis would target first. Why he was there, we don't know. Did someone give him away? We don't know. But the fact is, viewers, in the first wave, in what was being called the preemptory attack by the United States and Israel, Ayatollah Khamenei's end came. For about 8 hours, Iran refused to confirm. It took President Trump on Truth Social to come out and say that Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, had been decapitated in a strike that had been conducted by Israeli and American forces. 40 bunker busters pummeled this headquarters. It's in the heart of Tehran. As I said, viewers, it was the most obvious sight. Why the Ayatollah chose to be there, we don't know. But we do know that with him went a number of other senior leaders. And you can see these buildings basically being reduced to rubble within seconds. The impact was so devastating that for a mile around this building, viewers, you can see that road there. All those cars zipping past, but within minutes, seconds, entire area was covered in a pall of smoke. Nothing was left, viewers, of that site. And with him went Ayatollah Khamenei. 40 years he had been ruling Iran. His hold was a stranglehold. The people of Iran feared him. 50% of the population hated him. But he hung on there, viewers. He hung on only to be removed in this unseemly fashion by multiple strikes that were conducted in what was described as a preemptory strike, but it could turn out to be, viewers, the end strike. Because now Trump can legitimately go back to the people. He gets an off-ramp and he says, I've done what no other US president since Jimmy Carter could do, which is to eliminate and sever the head of the snake, the Ayatollah. Of course, viewers, Ayatollah Khamenei's predecessor was the founder of the Islamic Republic of Iran. He died a natural death, succession happens, and in that succession, it took 40 years, viewers. 40 years. Ayatollah Khamenei held on. No more, viewers. He's been reduced to ashes, dust to dust, ashes to ashes, as they say. That story, that chapter closes. We now know that others have begun to succeed him, viewers, and there is a whole succession plan. It's going to be run, the country is going to be run by an interim authority of 3 leaders, and over a period of time, these leaders are expected to either give shape to a turn in Iran or, viewers, continue down the radical path and continue down the path to war. Now, viewers, what we didn't expect were these scenes. Right after that attack, which took out the Iranian leadership, the Iranians, as I said, battened down the hatches and they hit back. And they have hit back, viewers, across the
Namaste and thank you for staying with us here at CNN News 18 as we have been on a rolling coverage right since America and Israel decided to launch Operation Epic Fury or Operation Lion's Roar against Iran, and Iran decided that revenge is their duty after their supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei was assassinated. The Middle East is now engulfed in a full-scale regional war. In a stunning development, Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei has been eliminated in a joint US-Israeli strike on Tehran. The operation, codenamed Epic Fury by America, is targeting Iran's nuclear sites and also their ballistics missiles and manufacturing stations. In retaliation, Tehran has unleashed waves of ballistic missiles launched at Tel Aviv and also American bases across the Gulf. US has rejected Iranian claims that US aircraft carrier USS Abraham Lincoln was attacked by Iran. Meanwhile, the conflict has also spilled on into the heart of the Gulf, with Dubai under direct attack. Flights at the Dubai International Airport are halted as missile debris has fallen near the Palm Jumeirah area and also Burj Al Arab. And also other Gulf nations, including Qatar, Bahrain, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia and Oman, are also under fire. And more importantly, viewers, there is activity in the Strait of Hormuz, despite Iran saying they have no intent to close the Strait of Hormuz. But a tanker belonging to Oman and an Emirati ship has also been, merchant vessel, has also been bombed by the Iranians One in the Strait of Hormuz, whilst it was trying to enter it, the other one in the Persian Gulf. Saudi Arabia is very, very upset, and it's warned Iran. UAE is now coming together. The Omanis, the Bahrainis, all of them are looking at Iran and saying, what are you trying to do? Because we may now just combine ranks and push all our might against you. When we say you, the IRGC, and of course the remaining leadership of the current regime. Regime change is what everybody is asking for. Let's try and understand how the top leadership of Iran has been eliminated so far. And that's the full list. It's all from the top. The Americans and the Israelis seem to have planned it, that this is how they're going to create a leadership vacuum or a hole for the people of Iran to finally perhaps come back and take control. Let's look at this. The Supreme Leadership, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. In the defense sector, National Head of Defense Council, Ali Shamkhani, very close to Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, the Supreme Leader. Ali Larjiani, Secretary of Supreme National Council. Masoud Pezeshkian, the president, he is now holed up in a bunker. There is Cholam Hussein Mohseni, the head of the judiciary. Aziz Nazardeh, the defense minister. Then you have the Abdul Rahim Musavi, Chief of Staff of Iran's Armed Forces, Mohammad Pakpor, and then you have Ghalibaf, the parliament speaker. In fact, this entire straight line has been wiped out. He is still alive, the parliament speaker. That's what they are coming out and saying. Masoud Pezeshkian is still alive, and the head of judiciary and head of the National Security Council. So the sides, the wings are still alive. But the center, the core of their entire defense command and leadership has been wiped out, has been eliminated. That's what we are given to understand. And now let's try and also tell you how this was choreographed or orchestrated by the Americans and the Israelis. Let's try and understand this. Let's tell you how Ayatollah Ali Khamenei was killed. The inside story of the entire decapitation strike, that's what the USS Israeli Combine is calling it. There was a strategic build-up. There was weeks of US force mobilization in the Middle East that signaled imminent escalation. June 2025, there was a precursor because there were strikes that were conducted earlier, and they tried to see how deep and how well established are the Iranian installations, establishment. And after that, it's been continuous painstaking intelligence gathering on ground and also from the skies. Earlier Israeli attacks they actually degraded Iran's air defenses. Key IRGC commanders and also their nuclear scientists were systematically eliminated. Then, as part of the entire decapitation doctrine, Israel's operations also, organized its overall operationalizing its long-held strategy against Israel. It actually went ahead and dismantled the command and control before a broader regime as destabilization. Joint targeting grid was created. US-Israeli grid was the intel actually fused satellite, cyber, and human intelligence. That's how it was done. Then to map the hardened, several joint resources to map hardened leadership bunkers. Where were they being moved? Which were the bunkers? And of course, the opening salvo, dozens of precision strikes hitting the nuclear facilities, missile depots, IRGC command nodes also were hit. Air defense suppression was done. Iranian radar and SAMS batteries were neutralized in the first wave. And then, after the first wave of strikes blinded Tehran's response capability, communications blackout came into play. Cyber ops were also conducted to disrupt secure military communications and internal channels. Internet was blocked and disrupted so that there could be no communication or dissemination of information. And the moment you have communication breaks, there is darkness. In terms of darkness and communication, you have the opportunity to move in for the kill in terms of the kinetic action. Target lock, Supreme Leader's compound, and of course then intel pinpointing Ayatollah Ali Khamenei's location with the family. There was a conference, and within a fortified command complex, precision strikes. There was bunker busters were used, but deep underground. So the first one blows, creates a hole, another one comes, creates a deeper hole, and the final one goes right through and then causes maximum damage. So they targeted subterranean structures, the structures designed to withstand conventional assault, hit, and also command collapse. Of course, the entire senior military leadership has already been weakened. The moment there's a leadership vacuum, then you know that the foot soldiers don't know what to do, and there will be absolute chaos and confusion. This created a vacuum at the apex of power, despite Iran trying to democratize the leadership and create at least 3-4 shadow leaders, so that one goes, the other one comes in, that goes, another one comes in. They've still tried to put somebody there, but beyond how many layers can you create? And if I wipe out all the layers, then there is a rookie and somebody who does not know who's there, or there may be somebody who's pliant and does not actually hold the kind of anti-US, anti-Israeli sentiment like the top three and the top leadership did. So we have to wait and watch if that's been achieved. US President Trump publicly announcing Ali Khamenei's death after multiple indications from Bibi Netanyahu and also from other sources. Finally, President Trump confirming that that's what's happened, and then Iranian state media later confirmed Khamenei's death. Psychological shockwave that was sent across, and then of course there is anger. There is this promise that revenge is now our duty. You've killed the supreme leader, we'll not let this lying down. But it may take us a few days, a few months, a few years, but be rest assured that that radical group that believed that Ayatollah Ali Khamenei is the one who's a supreme leader, they will be eyeing revenge. So that's what they would do. And finally, the Iranians coming back and saying, we are going to fight back. Emily Francis, host of I-24 News, is with us. Emily, and you are Shemesh. So can we ask you, what's the situation on ground, and is it true that the Iranians did fire a hypersonic missile there? Thank you. Thank you for joining us.
Hi. Thank you, Anas. Thanks for having us. Listen, this is a very mountainous area that is very hard to get to. It has been a very, very difficult scene with a lot of moving parts. Yes, it was a direct ballistic missile hit shot from Iran. It happened in the late morning hours today. This after overnight direct missile hit in Tel Aviv, where a woman who was actually a caretaker, not from Israel, was taking care of an elderly woman. She passed away. But here in broad daylight, Bet Shemesh was rocked by a missile with a warhead said to be about 500 kilograms. The area is behind me. I can try to move this. I hope not to have a technical issue, but up on this hill is a big crater. But because there were other potential incoming missiles, they had to ask us to leave. But there are hundreds of people there on the scene. There are 9 that are confirmed dead. Reports of more, also more than a dozen are unaccounted for. And what we understand, even though you see high rises here with some damage, this was residual ricocheting damage from the missile itself. That is how neighbors describe what happened. But the small houses on the hill is where the direct hit was, because everybody was sheltering in a synagogue in the shelters people go to. But because these buildings and shelters are old, it's not enough to withstand a ballistic missile. So that is what happened. It's quite tragic. Also, a 4-year-old was in pretty severe condition, but we're told now that he has undergone surgery and is expected to be okay. But a very grisly scene here right now in Bet Shemesh.
We're told that at least 8 people are dead, and condolences. Now, what's happened is civilians being targeted is never good, either ways, whichever side faces the brunt of war or conflict. But Emily, what was the epicenter of this target? Was it an electronics facility? Was it a civilian area? What was the intended target?
This is a civilian area. Yes, they are, pointing directly to civilian areas. I mean, the ones that hit in Tel Aviv was next to Habima, which is the cultural center and the famous Rothschild Avenue. I have a friend that lives there, and all of her windows broke. So they are targeting areas where civilians live. Here in Bet Shemesh, actually, is a very popular neighborhood for Anglos that move to Israel, make aliyah to Israel. There's a large English-speaking community here with English schools. Most people tend to be more observant. So this children, parks, kids' activities. I mean, this is what they're doing. They're not targeting, special intelligence facilities. They're targeting human beings, including myself. I spent the weekend yesterday with my own kids going up and down about 10 times. You could hear Air Force jet. Could you hear that?
Yes.
Yeah, we hear jets flying overhead. You can't see because it's cloudy. But, you know, aside from the tragedy that's happening here, it is, you know, it's something, unfortunately, that those of us here in Israel have gotten used to in the past 2.5 years. But they're purposely, every 15 minutes, you have children. If you don't have a safe room in your home, which the more modern apartments have, everybody, all your neighbors are in a basement, kids, dogs, waking children up in the middle of the night. It's quite disturbing. But you know, we're just hoping that this doesn't continue to happen. I don't know how to answer what that is. It does sound like an Air Force plane. We are in the we're near Jerusalem, so we're in the middle of the country, southern middle. Yes.
But you know, do they sound like aircraft?
Very unfortunate.
Do they sound like aircraft? Do they sound like missiles?
It sounds like yeah, it's a military aircraft. No, it's a military aircraft. It sounds like an Israeli aircraft, not a missile.
Okay.
Famous last words.
No, not last words. Before we go across to other guests, Bibi Netanyahu has also now reacted, saying that there's going to be more in the coming days. What is Israel's expectation here? Because the world is also looking at Israel as a warmonger. Would you agree with that? Would you agree with the position that's been taken by US, Israel and Saudi Arabia vis-a-vis the Khamenei regime in Iran?
You know, no, Israel is not, listen, the people are divided in the country, you know, about the prime minister and the way of handling the war. But I think that the world, as we've seen, likes to blame, you know, everything on Israel. This is the United States. This is a threat on the United States. And, you know, the world, we know how the narrative has been framed. And clearly, not everything is perfect here, and the country itself is divided. But what I think everybody agrees, I imagine those of you in India as well, whether you know you're political, you're right or left, we don't want to have to live in fear of having to continue to go into bomb shelters and continue to send our children to fight in the army. Everybody wants to have peace here, and I think that you know the people of Iran, no one, you know, a lot of times you see more focus on what Israel's doing. Versus you don't see the alarms of people in many parts of the world about all of the Iranians that want their country back as well, that are being killed. So we can't forget about how the people on the ground, who have been very supportive, the Iranian people reach out to me. Somehow they're able to see I-24, many of them, and they say, we're with you. And I think that's civilians on both sides wish to have a relationship again without this regime.
Well, if regime changes the intent, will that be achieved as a goal? We'll have to say. Emily, thank you very much, Emily. Stay safe, and thank you for joining us here. Good to have you with us.
Thank you. And we love you. We love India, and your prime minister came to see us.
Well, the sentiment is very, very mutual, Emily. So, and you could see that the warmth was flowing on both ends, both between the leaders and also its people. May these bonds only strengthen further. We've just got more news. Have to move on to that quickly. Viewers, Prime Minister Netanyahu on the rooftop of the IDF headquarters in Tel Aviv. And he's come out and said that the strikes on Iran will only intensify in the coming days. And he's further said, we are in a battle in which we are mobilizing every force of the Israeli army as never before to ensure our existence and our future. So, Tom Cooper, Adrian Fontanella is with me in the studio, and they've been tirelessly working with us. We've just perhaps understood how a newsroom in Bharat actually functions round the clock, spending the whole day with us. Very different from YouTube, very different from writing, Tom, but thank you for your time. We also introduce our other guests before I get your comments in. Professor Danny Orbach, author and military historian from the Hebrew University of Jerusalem, is also with us. Ambassador Ashok Sajjanar with us, and Sushant Sareen stays on. Thank you, gents. Namaste. But Tom, you heard what Emily had to say. They're saying civilian establishments, and Netanyahu has come out and said this is going to only intensify in the coming days. Just as we have confirmation from the Americans that the B-52 bombers did a full round trip and they dropped a heavy payload at a ballistic missile manufacturing site and storage site not so long ago. Yes, your thoughts?
Well, on one side, I must, for example, observe Beit Shemesh is right next to Sdot Micha, which is the main Israeli base for ballistic missiles and nuclear weapons.
Oh, is that the case? So let's look at this. Let's put it in perspective. I'm going to bring up the mic. Let's understand. So there is more to it than meets the eye, viewers. So let's just shake things up, wake things up a little, and also, and then dive in here. Okay, so this is Iraq, Iran, and then you go up to Sana'a. And there you go. That's Israel.
Just a second to turn it around.
Yes. Okay. Just some patience. Yeah. Okay. This is Beit Shemesh.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. We got
Now
the
write.
pen. And now we can write.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, you want to increase the
delete
size?
it.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Delete it. Yeah.
Right here is Dot Micha.
Okay. Should we just open it a little?
Yeah.
Yeah. We open it. That's Beit Shemesh.
And this complex here,
Okay. Now you can draw.
so this complex here is Dot Micha. This is
Dot
the
Miha. It's called DOT?
SDOT.
SDOT.
Yes.
And MI?
MICH.
CH.
Yes. A.
A. So Dot Miha. Dot Miha, what is this? This is there?
This is the
Their
area.
ballistic.
Ballistic missile base, 140th Squadron of the Israeli Air Force with nuclear warheads and similar equipment.
So 100 and?
140th Squadron.
140 squadron. Okay.
Yes.
This is the space. And this is where the ballistic missile the Iranians have tried to launch.
I guess that they were trying either to hit electronic industry in the town or arrow batteries, anti-ballistic missile battery protecting Beit Shemesh and Dot Micha, or the base itself.
Okay, because what they said is that it was on top of a hilly area. That's where. So, this is S. Dot Miha. This is where it is. You've got
This
S.
is the
Dot Miha.
complex. I'm pointing at the
Yeah,
complex. This is the place called S. Dot Micha.
S. Dot
But
Miha.
it is known outside of Israel. It is known as Dot Micha.
Dot Miha. So
Base,
that's the place. So that's what was being targeted. And there's a reason why I asked Tom Cooper this, because when Emily said it's a civilian area that's being targeted, Tom Cooper had a wry smile on his face, and I said there's more to it than meets the eye. So the Israelis are targeting the ballistic missile facilities of the Iranians.
And the Americans as well.
And the Americans as well. The Americans of the Iranians. So the Iranians are saying, hey, we also know where your depots are, so we're going to start this. So this is the real dimension of war. It's not that Iran is targeting civilian facilities. It's targeting, or its aim is to try and hit those facilities that are actually, viewers, very close to military installations, which are also close to civilian establishments. And that's where sometimes on both sides there is collateral damage. But you have to understand what's the real point of view, the real inside story. And that's why we're getting you the details from inside the bunker with Tom Cooper. But Adrian, let's just play out Bibi Netanyahu and then bring in our other guests. Let's listen into what the Israel Prime Minister had to say.
Just finished a meeting with the defense minister, the chief of staff, and the head of the Mossad. I have given instructions for the continuation of the campaign. Yesterday, we eliminated the tyrant Khamenei. Along with him, we eliminated dozens of senior officials of the oppressive regime. Our forces are now striking in the heart of Tehran with increasing intensity, and this will only continue to intensify even more over the coming days. And yet, these are painful days. Yesterday here in Tel Aviv and now in Beit Shemesh, we have lost dear people. My heart goes out to the families, and I send, on behalf of all of you, citizens of Israel, wishes for a speedy recovery to the wounded. We are in a campaign in which we are bringing the full force of the IDF as never before to this campaign to ensure our existence and our future. But we are also bringing to this campaign the assistance of the United States. My friend, the President of the United States, Donald Trump, the United States military, and this combination of forces allows us to do what I have been wishing to do for 40 years, to strike the terror regime hip and thigh. This is what I promised, and this is what we will do.
So, Bibi Netanyahu says, I've been wanting to do this for 40 years, and finally I'm able to do that, to hit this regime hip and thigh. And the regime, now, Donald Trump turns around and says that 48 Iranian leaders are gone in one shot. That's what President Trump is saying. America knows how many targets are left. But the Iranians are saying, we also know where your weak points are and where we want to hit you. And no matter what happens to us, we will hit you too. That's what they are saying, Fateh Khabar, the Iranians. We've got one more thing. German Chancellor has come out and said Iran's mullah regime is coming to an end. Germany's Chancellor is saying after the killing of the Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei. Now, is this going to escalate further, or if there is a leadership vacuum in the Iranian leadership, the regime, will the people now want a turn? Now, if that turn happens, who's next? Because there is nobody, no other alternative. Or will America say, oh, listen, our job was just to move the regime. We've moved them out. Now you decide what you want to do. And then we have a whole new mess in Iran. Adrian.
I think it is absolutely the weak point of the American and Israeli strategy, because it is roughly hoping for the best. So if they manage to weaken the regime, and if the population revolt, it is two big ifs. But even so, there is no one who can predict what will happen after a while, because the Islamic Republic was a dictatorship, so there was no organized opposition political party. So you are basically not knowing what you are going into. And we have precedents about such circumstances. It was Syria and it was Libya. Let's say it didn't end very well.
Yeah,
or at least not before a decade of civil war. So normally, and it is what the Indians did during Operation Sindoor. The political leadership has to set clear political goals, and then the armed forces are operating on the operational, tactical level, and they use violence, they use force to pursue this political strategic objective. But in these circumstances, I'm sorry, but the political objective is unclear. And if the political objective is unclear, there is no way the use of force can give precise and determined results.
So you're comparing this with Op Sindoor, and viewers, this is very interesting. Let's get Professor Danny Obak to respond on this, and then we'll bring in Ambassador Sajjan Har and also Sushant Sareen, Tom Cooper too. But Professor Danny Obak, the comparison with Op Sindoor is that Bharat knew exactly what the objective was, what the goal was. When that goal was achieved, the pause button was pressed. We backed off. In this case, there is no clarity what is the political objective. And when that happens, there is no defining the military activity behind it. Professor Obak.
You know, I'd like to challenge your assumptions and the assumptions of my colleague here. Usually the imagination that every war has a close knitted strategy and political plan behind it for the day after, this is nonsense. This is the illusion and the myth of armchair strategists. Usually wars are being conducted under a lot of uncertainty. Give you one example. In the Second World War, nobody knew what the day after would be until 44, 45. I'm making a complicated story simple. In this case, though, what the operation is set to achieve is A, to weaken the regime enough that there will be an option for a popular uprising. The popular uprising is not the goal. Maybe it will be, maybe it will not be. But the main goal is to destroy the assets of the Iranian regime, the navy, the remnants of the nuclear program and the ballistic missiles program that threaten the region. That's the main issue. Revolution in Iran, who knows?
So the idea is to wipe out the nuclear capabilities and also the ballistic missile capability.
In the Navy, the Iranian Navy.
And the Iranian Navy. So that's why the corvette has been sunk. But armchair strategists will not understand this, Tom Cooper, that you cannot have a political objective
During the Second World War,
things are evolving.
Perfectly clear. During the Second World War, things were perfectly clear as early as 1941, when Roosevelt and Churchill sat down together and started building up the future United Nations. And there was never a discussion about the beyond the fact that they are aiming to destroy the Nazi regime in Germany and remove the one in Italy, but especially to destroy the one in Germany and to replace it with one which is then peaceful. In this case, there is no such clarity.
In this case, there's no such clarity. Let's bring in our other guests and ask them. Ambassador Sajanhar, which side are you on? Adrian and Tom Cooper or Professor Orbach?
You know, thank you very much, Anand. I have always been saying that the game plan, the strategy for the day after is very unclear, is very unknown. And that is very critical, that is very crucial, you know, because you have to know, you know, how do you end it? There is the comparison that was given with Op Sindoor. You know, we were completely dominating the escalation ladder. We knew how it was going, we were controlling it, and we knew when to stop it, when our objectives have been achieved. But as far as this is concerned, you know, the idea that was given was regime change. Okay, fine, if you get this regime out, what comes in its place? You know, it has not been articulated. We have heard Mr. Trump saying, I know exactly, you know, who is going to sort of, you know, take over. But the only person who has been on the scene, on the horizon, who has said, you know, that I would like to come back and take over the reins, that is Reza Pahlavi. But he has received no endorsement whatsoever from the American side or from any of the others. The second point is, you know, maybe what the Americans and the Israelis thought that there would be a huge upsurge of support for, you know, removing this regime from there, the Islamic regime from there. But that doesn't seem to have come. And the reason, if you permit, I'll say in 2 words. Number one, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei has been killed. He's a religious leader, so all there is this uprising in terms of the religious support for him. You know, the opposition to this regime is economic, is much more economic because of the hardships that they have been subjected to. Of course, it's been political also. But as far as religious aspect is concerned, you know, that is where you see all these people coming out. And the last point here is any people, and the Iranian are proud people, you know, if you try to engineer something from the outside, you know, then it will be difficult to get people to sort of, you know, subscribe to that point of view. That is why maybe to an extent what the Americans and the Israelis are saying, let them decide what they want to do. But without a leader, it becomes very, very difficult, if not absolutely impossible, to see where things are going.
True, right? But the fact is that there is no internal leadership. What are you going to leave Iran back with and for the rest of the people in Iran? Sushant Sareen, which side are you on? Is there a clear objective? End the regime, finish the nuclear weapons program, damage the entire ballistics missile program, job done? Or should there be a larger, clearer objective? Ji, you're on mute.
I would imagine that's a very clear objective. If those are your 3 objectives, even if you don't get regime change, but you denuclearize Iran and you, like I said earlier, you emasculate it so that it's not a threat to any of the other countries around, then I think the purpose of this conflict has been served.
Right.
And if in the process you can also effect a regime change, then yes, that's the icing on the cake. But I think we should be careful when, you know, we say about the role of the supreme leader as the religious head. Look, there are many surveys from Iran which claim that 30 to 40, maybe even a larger number of people are actually atheists. They don't subscribe to the mullahs in Iran. They, in fact, they despise them, they abhor them. Among the rest of the people, I think there would again be a split of people who might be religious but do not subscribe to the mullahcracy in Iran. And then, of course, there would be a substantial number of people who would be entirely with the current regime and back it and actually benefit from it and support it wholeheartedly. So, that sense would be a split society. For anyone to claim that, you know, Khamenei was some kind of an imam and that everybody will genuflect before him, even in the Shia, in the Shia hierarchy of spiritual leaders, he doesn't really stack up to the guy from Iraq, Ali Sistani.
Yeah.
So I think we need to be careful on that count. Secondly, I agree that there is no visible leadership, alternate leadership available outside the current regime. Now, frankly, I think anybody who thinks that you're going to bring in Raza Pahlavi and install him out there, he will be as big a disaster as that fly-by-night operator that the Americans had got convinced by and who took them for a royal ride in Iraq, a man by the name of Ahmed Chalabi.
Yeah.
Right? You want to repeat that kind of a thing? Yeah, go ahead, be my guest. But I don't think Raza Pahlavi is a credible figure. And we saw even in Afghanistan, after the Taliban had been deposed in 2001, the king came back, but the king never became the king. Right? The world had moved on, the country had moved on. The king might have been a very respected person, but he was no longer acceptable as king. I would imagine something similar would happen in Iran, where yes, a bunch of people who would be royalists, but I think by and large, I don't see the acceptability of Raza Pahlavi.
So if there are perhaps a situation where there would be free and fair elections, why did you say that you agreed with Sushant there, Tom, when he talked about the clerical leadership not being the supreme leader, not having the kind of position?
Because there were significant doubts about qualification of late Ayatollah, Grand Ayatollah Khamenei, his religious qualifications. And several of his opponents within the clergy landed in a, well, not directly in a prison, but under similar circumstances because they were opposing him.
Right.
And he de facto capped himself to power.
Right. We're just getting to understand there's a fresh wave of airstrikes. There's a larger, this one, of course. Okay, now there is some welcome news to those who are stuck in Abu Dhabi, in Dubai. The Emirati government has come out and said the Department of Culture and Tourism has directed hotels to extend the stay of guests unable to travel due to current restrictions. The authority has said the cost of extended stays will be covered by the Department of Culture and Tourism Abu Dhabi, and hotels have been asked to send related invoices to the department. So that is something which is critical, imperative, and for us to put out. We put that out. I've just read out because it's just come into the system, viewers. I've read it even before our team at the back end has been ready to even put that out. They will put it out. You'll see the notice. We'll also call out the notice here on our screens if we can, on the big screen, and I'll go across and read it just as when they're ready. Quickly, just taking 30 seconds to thank our team at the back end. There are people behind the cameras, behind the scenes, who've been working non-stop for 14 to 16 hours, if not more, ever since this development happened to get you this kind of coverage. So I'm proud to be part of a team that is News 18, and we got two fresh additions through the day who've seen what we are going through when a situation like this. That's in Adrian and Tom. But coming back to this, there is a fresh wave of strikes in Tehran. So that means there's going to be much more activity that's going to happen. Let's just broad base this conversation if we can. And I'll read out the news, the Abu Dhabi update in a bit. Let's go back to what we said, viewers, a short while ago. We are going to look at the larger picture. So let's zoom out a little more and look at this entire region and understand from a strategic point of view what this activity means to, let's say, an Ankara. And further down, I'm just going to come back and just roll this back and roll this out a little more. And let's bring out some of the other countries that we wanted to speak about. There you go. All right. This is Google, the Google map. Yeah, Russia. And this entire region. So I wanted to bring in Russia. There had to be Ankara. There is China. Now let's look at this region and what's happening here, and then try and understand from everybody, each of our guests, starting with them in the studio, what does it mean for Turkey? What does it mean for Afghanistan, Pakistan, all that's happening here, this entire construct. And then there is Beijing, that's China, and then of course there is Moscow or Russia here. So what does it mean for this entire region and the developments here based on what is happening in this region? this is the fight and what's happening in Iran. How do things change, the dynamics? So let's start with Turkey, which is offered. So there is this Turkey, Iran, China, Pakistan kind of an axis that's been developing. What happens to that axis? Tom? You're welcome to join me
yes,
here.
if you don't
So
mind.
I'll just get this mic. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Let's start with Turkey. So
the pen is on.
This was
all right.
To understand the Turkish position, we have to take a look over here.
Right.
This is the African Horn.
Yeah.
Lately, Turkey was concerned, together with Egypt and Algeria and Saudi Arabia, that Israel and the United Arab Emirates have a sort of alliance and are working on destroying all of these countries, breaking them up into small, ungovernable entities, parastates, and so on. For example, they have...
Djibouti.
No, just a second. It's next to Djibouti is area called Somaliland. It is a part of Somalia, which has declared its independence from the rest of Somalia. Correspondingly, this was recognized by Israel, and it was recognized by United Arab Emirates. And they have started moving or developing diplomatic relations, and with the idea to sometimes deploy their armed forces there as well.
Correct.
Then in Sudan,
there is that South Sudan.
This is Sudan. Just a second. This is
Yeah.
Sudan. This part of the country is controlled by RSF, Rapid Support Forces, which is an ally or paid by United Arab Emirates and by Russia.
Okay.
So then we have in Ethiopia, there is a civil war going on in this area, in Tigray, which is government of Ethiopia is supported by United Arab Emirates and by Eritrea, used to be supported by Eritrea. So now what happened was that Egypt and Turkey have launched a military intervention in Somalia, supposedly in support of the internationally recognized government, but actually they had built up bases from here, from which they are striking the parts of Sudan, RSF in Sudan. So in order to counter this Israeli Emirati alliance, this was one part of the game. Before this has happened, the Saudis grew fed up of United Arab Emirates support for the Southern Transitional Council in Yemen, which is controlling approximately this part of the country. And when the forces of this council reached the border to Saudi Arabia, they not only bombed an arms shipment in Mukalla, but also told the United Arab Emirates to get out. They have really packed, and within 24 hours, all the United Arab Emirates troops were back to their country, out of Yemen. So we have seen also something similar happening in Libya. There Turkey is supporting the internationally recognized government in Tripoli, which is fighting against Emirati, Russian, and Israel-supported Haftar forces, so Libyan down forces.
Right.
So this is all becoming extremely complex, and Ankara has an eye on all of these situations and is very concerned about the outlooks. Similarly now, what is, of course, walking into Israeli hands is that Iran has now or hit the countries of the Gulf Cooperation Council, and then the Saudis said, okay, now if you are striking us, then we are going to strike you if this goes on like this. So this is playing now into Israeli, into Emirati hands.
Okay.
So we now have to wait for tomorrow, when there is going to be a meeting of the Gulf Cooperation Council. What are they going to decide? Are they really going to turn against Iran and join the US-Israeli war against Iran, or shall they, well,
just
remain reluctant and stay there and wait what happens?
Wait and watch what happens. Tom, stay around here.
Yes.
Adrian, I'm just going to come to you here and ask you quickly, what happens with China here? Where does China come into play here? And then we'll take it out to our guests before I read out the Abu Dhabi story also. Yeah.
China will be incensed by this situation, especially as it is a major customer of Iran oil, if only for that reason. So they do have several options to react. The first is relatively low-key, but it is providing targeting intelligence to Iran.
So China is helping, just like it helped Pakistan against India in Op Sindoor, it is giving intelligence inputs to Iran.
Yeah. Why not? It is invisible, but it tremendously helps the Iranians to strike specific targets, or even more importantly, to do battle damage assessments. It might be very useful in the PR warfare, because usually the Israelis are never speaking about any hits in their military installations. But if there is some, and if the Chinese began to prove that they were hidden, it is also changing the narrative warfare. The same goes for the US bases, of course, and so forth. So this is the first tier escalation. They also can try to provide to supply some specific kind of weapons, for example, anti-aircraft weapons.
Right.
Although it is a much bigger commitment, and if they go to the extreme, but I think it is not plausible or not probable, they could also send symbolic army detachments in Iran as a human shields.
The other part is that the Chinese will try and use and buy all the oil from the Iranians, which they seem to have kept somewhere closed away, somewhere away. What's going to happen to that, Ambassador Sajjanhar? Your assessment, because Tom Cooper believes that the Chinese will be able to. The Iranians have actually carted away millions of barrels, which they've already mined or pulled out, extracted, and they have moved it away from Iran. And they're going to use that money to try and fuel and fund this war, or their retaliation and their response for at least 30 days, if not 60. That's what Tom Cooper believes. That's what Adrian believes. What's your thought?
You see, my thought on this subject is, number one, that all the countries that you have mentioned, particularly Russia, China, etc., they have very strong ties with Iran. As far as Israel is concerned, they have been sort of pushing back against Israel, particularly after October 7, 2023, and whatever the action that Israel has been taking on that. So they are quite averse to the manner in which Americans and Israelis have come and they have pummeled Iran. And that is what you can see in the statements that have come out from them. Secondly, Iran, we know, has been unhappy with what China has been doing. What Pezeshkian said just a couple of days ago, that, we are very disappointed. China was supposed to come $400 billion and all these sort of things, putting in infrastructure. They have not really been able to deliver. So, on that aspect, there is disappointment as far as Iran is concerned. Covertly, China might be able to do something. Russia can't even do that. Whatever they had to do, I think they did between June of last year and today. But otherwise, overtly, not even in terms of supplies, not even in terms of human detachment, I don't think anything of that nature can happen.
Right.
As far as,
Jay. No, I just got the update. We've got that Abu Dhabi Department of Culture and Tourism, the DCT, that has directed hotels to extend of guests unable to travel due to current restrictions. We've got, we'll try and put that notice out if we can. Do we? Yeah, so let's go, let's call it up. It's, I'll read this out, viewers. And this is important. See, this is what is, it says. This is in English, and then of course it's there in Arabic on the other side. It says extension of guest stay due to travel restrictions. Now this is for Abu Dhabi. Whether this will be extended by Dubai also, within the Emirate, anywhere and everywhere within the Emirate, we'll have to wait and see. But this is what it says: pursuant to law number 8 of 2018, establishing the Department of Culture and Tourism Abu Dhabi, DCT Abu Dhabi, with a mandate to develop the tourism industry in the Emirate of Abu Dhabi. In light of the current circumstances, and given that some guests have reached their checkout date but are unable to travel for reasons beyond their control, you are kindly requested to extend their stay until they are able to depart. The cost of the extended stay will be covered by the DCT Abu Dhabi. Kindly send all related invoices to the following email address. For further inquiries, please contact the business continuity team and at the following number. So they've also put this. More importantly, viewers, anybody who's currently in Abu Dhabi and you are worried about your hotel stay, extension, etc., the government has said, don't worry, we'll take care. I think that's a big, big step that's come from the Emirate of Abu Dhabi, from the Sheikh itself, and kudos to MBZ for doing what he is doing. Now we got one more news coming through. 2 Jordanian F-16s hunting the Iranian drones. That's what's happening. We got pictures of that. There you go. On your screens, viewers, on your screens, the two Jordanian F-16s that are now hunting Iranian drones. So somewhere within the military-industrial complex, the famed F-16s are back, which they believe are indestructible, virtually the heroes as far as American air warfare is concerned. And the F-16s, they have now been pictured hunting Iranian drones. But this is a costly hunt. If we were to say that you have to fly F-16s to hunt Iranian drones, unless these drones are something as potent as the Shahid 136 or some of the other bigger drones, which can really cause big damage. And that's why these, the F-16s have been put into service there. We're going to take a very short break. Stay with us.
Viewers, the war is on. The war is on in the Middle East, and it is only widening by the minute. And it was expected that the Iranian regime would fold, but it hasn't. It has decided to dig its heels deep into the ground, and it is fighting with its back to the wall. Unprecedented visuals coming out from the Middle East, viewers, today. We will first begin with the most emblematic picture that we were expecting to see, or we would have expected to see, but perhaps not today, in the next few days. But viewers, unfortunately for Ayatollah Khamenei, the first visuals that are coming out from Iran are of his own decapitation. These, viewers, are the IRGC headquarters. This is where somehow, God knows how, Ayatollah was present in the most expected location. He was not supposed to be there, viewers. Anyone else would have decided not to be at the most obvious site, the site where perhaps the Americans and the Israelis would target first. Why he was there, we don't know. Did someone give him away? We don't know. But the fact is, viewers, in the first wave, in what was being called the preemptory attack by the United States and Israel, Ayatollah Khamenei's end came. For about 8 hours, Iran refused to confirm. It took President on Truth Social to come out and say that Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, had been decapitated in a strike that had been conducted by Israeli and American forces. 40 bunker buses pummeled this headquarters. It's in the heart of Tehran. As I said, viewers, it was the most obvious site. Why the Ayatollah chose to be there, we don't know. But we do know that with him went a number of other senior leaders. And you can see these buildings basically being reduced to rubble within seconds. The impact was so devastating that for a mile around this building, viewers, you can see that road there. All those cars zipping past, but within minutes, seconds, entire area was covered in a pall of smoke. Nothing was left, viewers, of that site. And with him went Ayatollah Khamenei. 40 years he had been ruling Iran. His hold was a stranglehold. The people of Iran feared him. 50% of the population hated him. But he hung on there, viewers. He hung on only to be removed in this unseemly fashion by multiple strikes that were conducted in what was described as a preemptory strike, but it could turn out to be, viewers, the end strike. because now Trump can legitimately go back to the people. He gets an off-ramp and he says, I've done what no other US president since Jimmy Carter could do, which is to eliminate and sever the head of the snake, the Ayatollah. Of course, viewers, Ayatollah Khamenei's predecessor was the founder of the Islamic Republic of Iran. He died a natural death, succession happens, and in that succession, it took 40 years, viewers. 40 years. Ayatollah Khamenei held on. No more, viewers. He's been reduced to ashes, dust to dust, ashes to ashes, as they say. That story, that chapter closes. We now know that others have begun to succeed him, viewers, and there is a whole succession plan.
So viewers, even as Air India has extended the cancellation of all flights, suspension of all flights, even on the 2nd of March, Foreign Minister Jaishankar has just now tweeted, and he's said that I had a chat with my Omani counterpart. The EAM has said, had a telecon this evening with the Oman FM, Badr al-Busaidi, and he has said appreciated his assessments and insights on the ongoing conflict. So Siddhant Mishra joins us with more on this. So it's being still called a conflict. Its assessment or the wording has not moved to a war. It's still being called a conflict. But what's the assessment by the Foreign Ministry?
Well, yes, that's right, Anand. It is still being called a conflict, and this particular conversation is very, very significant because given that, in fact, we also reported this evening that how Iran has attacked the Palau flag oil tanker skyline as it was passing through the Strait of Hormuz, right of the coast of Oman. In fact, 4 sailors were wounded in this attack. There were many Indians also who were the part of the crew. Now all have been safely evacuated. Now, the Strait of Hormuz is very, very critical for the oil trade, Anand, and 20% of world's oil passes through this route. And this was first attack by the Iranian forces on this vessel, in which the Indians were also the part of the crew. All have been evacuated, and now this telephonic conversation is taking place between EMS Jaishankar and Oman's foreign minister, perhaps sharing perspectives and insights on the ongoing conflict.
Right. Thank you for that, Siddhant. Clearly, the foreign minister not revealing much, but was happy with the assessments, and he appreciates the assessments that's been provided by the Omanis. So quietly, work is happening at the background in trying to secure the safety of Bharatiya citizens while also working towards measures that could perhaps de-escalate the current situation. Meanwhile, Tehran has launched fresh retaliatory attacks. The Supreme Leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. CNN International, or CNN's Michael Yoshida, is getting us this report from Washington, D.C. on the latest, and this is soon after President Trump's comments.
A missile intercept heard over the suburbs of Dubai as Iran launches a fresh wave of strikes across the Middle East Sunday morning. Retaliation continuing after the death of its supreme leader during a U.S.-Israeli strike on the country.
The Iranian regime clearly feels that they are on their death ground. They are going to fight to the bitter end at this point.
U.S. President Donald Trump warning Iran against continued retaliation, saying in a social media post that they would be met with unprecedented force from the U.S. The FBI's counterterrorism and counterintelligence teams are on elevated alert across the U.S., according to a bureau official. Meanwhile, concerns are rising that retaliations could disrupt the oil trade.
I think at risk is the Strait of Hormuz. 20% of the world's oil goes through there. Terrorism, attacks against American citizens, American diplomats.
President Trump has indicated the military operation is aimed at overturning Tehran's government, following failed diplomatic negotiations over Iran's nuclear program.
Whoever takes power is going to have to fight the remnants of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps and any of the supporters of the previous Ayatollah.
Across the U.S., people took to the streets, some in celebration.
We want democracy, the end of terrorism, and we want the world to pay attention and be with us.
Others in protest.
We had, felt the need to come out and oppose any kind of U.S. intervention or war in the Middle East.
I'm Michael Yoshida reporting.
Viewers, the war is on. The war is on in the Middle East, and it is only widening by the minute. And it was expected that the Iranian regime would fold, but it hasn't. It has decided to dig its heels deep into the ground, and it is fighting with its back to the wall. Unprecedented visuals coming out from the Middle East, viewers, today. We will first begin with the most emblematic picture that we were expecting to see, or we would have expected to see, but perhaps not today, in the next few days. But viewers, unfortunately for Ayatollah Khamenei, the first visuals that are coming out from Iran are of his own decapitation. These, viewers, are the IRGC headquarters. This is where somehow, God knows how, Ayatollah was present in the most expected location. He was not supposed to be. Anyone else would have decided not to be at the most obvious site, the site where perhaps the Americans and the Israelis would target first. Why he was there, we don't know. Did someone give him away? We don't know. But the fact is, viewers, in the first wave, in what was being called the preemptory attack by the United States and Israel, Ayatollah Khamenei's end. For about 8 hours, Iran refused to confirm. It took President Trump on Truth Social to come out and say that Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, had been decapitated in a strike that had been conducted by Israeli and American forces. 40 bunker busters pummeled this headquarters. It's in the heart of Tehran. As I said, viewers, it was the most obvious site. Why the Ayatollah chose to be there, we don't know. But we do know that with him went a number of other senior leaders. And you can see these buildings basically being reduced to rubble within seconds. The impact was so devastating that for a mile around this building, viewers, you can see that road there. All those cars zipping past, but within minutes, seconds, entire area was covered in a pall of smoke. Nothing was left, viewers, of that site. And with him went Ayatollah Khamenei. 40 years he had been ruling Iran. His hold was a stranglehold. The people of Iran feared him. 50% of the population hated him. But he hung on there, viewers. He hung on only to be removed in this unseemly fashion by multiple strikes that were conducted in what was this a preemptory strike, but it could turn out to be, viewers, the end strike.
Iran's supreme leader is dead. It's the biggest blow to the Iranian regime in decades, a blow that America and Israel hope will topple the regime. So right now, the opposite is happening. Iran is hitting back hard. They have intensified the ballistic missile attacks on Israeli cities and Arab Gulf states. Iran has also inflicted the first casualties on America. They have killed 3 U.S. soldiers and wounded 5 others. So it's been a day of rapid escalation in this war. We'll bring you all the latest updates tonight. And like all modern day wars, this one is also being streamed across social media. We'll bring you the top 5 dramatic videos from the fighting. Also on the show, after Ayatollah Ali Khamenei's death, Who will be the new supreme leader of Iran? How much longer can Iran's regime keep fighting? Did the US military use Anthropic's Claude to launch strikes on Iran? Did Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince MBS secretly ask Donald Trump to attack Iran? And what do these repeated missile and drone incursions mean for West Asia's model city, Dubai? All this and more coming up. The headlines first. Pro-Iranian protesters try to storm US consulates in Pakistan and Iraq. Pakistan's Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif cancels his trip to Russia, cites regional and internal situation for this decision. Since last Thursday, fresh cross-border clashes have also erupted between Islamabad and Kabul. Hezbollah vows to confront the US and Israel over their strikes on Iran and the killing of Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. So far, the Tehran-backed group has not taken any action. Last June, Hezbollah did not intervene in Iran's 12-day war with Israel after being battered in its own conflict with Tel Aviv. The OPEC Plus group hikes oil production by more than expected. The adjustment will be implemented in April. Top oil producers like Saudi Arabia and Russia are part of this alliance. The decision comes as tensions across West Asia continue to escalate. Iran's retaliatory strikes have targeted key members of this oil cartel. Belgium Special Forces board and seize an oil tanker from Russia's shadow fleet. The vessel was intercepted in the North Sea. Brussels says the tanker was sailing under the false flag of Guinea. The West has often accused Russia of using tankers of dubious ownership to evade sanctions over the Ukraine war. And at least 2 people killed in a shooting in the U.S. state of Texas. 14 others have been injured in this incident, which took place in a popular bar in Austin. The suspected gunman was fatally shot by the police. It's day 2 of the war in West Asia and things are only intensifying. Missiles continue to hit Arab cities and Israel. Israeli jets continue to strike Iran. It's the ultimate battle of firepower versus endurance. And it's not stopping. A new wave is unleashed every few hours. Neither side is willing to back down right now. Despite taking severe hits, Iran is retaliating hard. They now claim to have struck America's USS Abraham Lincoln carrier in the region. This is an aircraft carrier. Iran says, we attacked it, we struck it. That too with 4 ballistic missiles. The US says the warship was not hit and that the missiles did not even come close. But the fact is, things are escalating fast. And there's a reason why. Today began with a shocking announcement. Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, had been killed. Reports say the CIA and Mossad had triangulated his position. On Saturday morning, he was holding a meeting in Tehran. In that meeting, top military leaders of Iran were present. So the Israeli Air Force decided to act on this input. Their initial plan was to begin attacking at night. But after this input, they waited until Saturday morning. And in the first wave, Khamenei was taken out. He was holed up at a military compound in the capital. Look at the aftermath of the strike. You can see the images before and after the impact. The compound was completely destroyed. Iran did not immediately confirm Khamenei's death. It was Donald Trump who made the first announcement. Listen to what he said, and I'm quoting, "Khamenei, one of the most evil people in history, is dead. Hopefully, the IRGC and police will peacefully merge with the Iranian patriots and work together as a unit to bring back the country to the greatness it deserves." Well, that was wishful thinking. Yes, Khamenei's death was a huge blow to the regime. This is a man who's led Iran since the year 1989. He has dominated the country's religion and politics for decades. As his death was announced, even reporters broke down on air.
بعد از عمری مجاهدت حسینی و دائمی و خستگی ناپذیر روح بلند و ملکوتی کوه نستوه ولایت پدر مهربان امت.
Well, the regime did not disintegrate despite everything. Surviving officials spoke to the nation. They said that Khamenei's killing had burnt the country's heart. And in response, they vowed to make Israel pay.
This incident is a very bitter incident for us, for the entire nation of Iran. America and the Zionists, with this move, have effectively created conditions for Iran and for the Iranian nation that they have burned the heart of the Iranian nation. We will burn their hearts. They must understand that it is not like they can strike and then get away.
The attack did not just kill Khamenei, it killed many others who were present in the same compound. Khamenei's grandchild, his daughter-in-law, and his son-in-law. Plus, several top Iranian military leaders were present, and they've been killed. The defense minister was killed, for instance. The armed forces chief was killed. The Iranian Revolutionary Guards chief was also killed, and so was the secretary of Iran's Defense Council. Reports say former President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad was also killed in a separate strike. And remember, we're talking about the most important men in Iran. All of them were wiped out in one go. Yet Iran was striking back in no time. Yesterday, they focused their firepower on the Gulf states. Today, the focus was on Israel. Dozens of ballistic missiles and drones were fired at Israel. Millions of citizens take cover. As always, Israel's air defenses intercepted some of them, but a handful of missiles did land directly. Reports say around 40 buildings in Tel Aviv were damaged. We also saw fires break out in high rises. Take a look at this. Iran is also hitting US bases. Washington has announced that 3 of their soldiers have been killed so far, plus 5 others have been injured. These are the first US casualties in the ongoing war. As things stand, we do not know when, where or how this happened. But the US statement does talk about shrapnel injuries and concussions. Israel was not sitting idle either. Their military also carried out attacks through the day. Operationally, the Israelis seem to have 3 goals. The first is to establish complete aerial superiority. Earlier this morning, Israel hit more than 30 targets in western and central Iran, and this included air defenses, missile launchers, and command centers. Hours later, Israel went deeper. They claim to have hit the heart of Tehran. This is basically the nerve center of the Iranian capital. It's home to the airport and key regime offices. And on day 2, Israel has started attacking these sites. Their end goal is to create an air corridor to Tehran. And we saw that last June. Israel used short bursts to take out Iran's air defenses. Once air superiority was achieved, the attacks became relentless, sort of like a train of jets constantly attacking. That's what Israel is eyeing again. They want to freely operate over the skies of Tehran, and for that, their first stop is Western Iran. You cannot reach Tehran without flying over Western Iran, and Israel knows this. They're taking out Iranian jets in the region, that too right on the tarmac before takeoff. So that's the first goal, air superiority. The second goal is to decapitate the military leadership. Israel has killed dozens of senior leaders, including 40 commanders in 1 minute.
In the opening strike of the operation, the IDF eliminated 40 commanders and seniors from the Iranian regime in 1 minute. The Air Force's fighter jets are operating around the clock to locate and strike missile-array targets of the terrorist Iranian regime.
Now the third goal, take out Iran's offensive capabilities. We're talking about the missiles and the launchers here. They want to demolish them. Israeli jets are targeting launchers in the west of Iran. Some of them are being blown up while being loaded. Casualties are slowly starting to rise. In Iran, more than 200 people have been killed so far, including more than 100 girls at a school. While in Israel, 9 people have been killed and dozens injured. Now remember, these are just the opening salvos of a massive war. Both sides will soon get desperate, and that's when civilians will feel the pinch. Now here's the thing about wars like this. They don't just play out on the ground, they play out on our screens. A missile tearing through the night sky, an explosion flashing before the camera can focus, a shaky phone clip filmed by someone who never meant to become a war correspondent. This is not just war as it happens, this is war as it is witnessed, recorded, uploaded, and replayed. So we looked at the videos, and we've compiled 6 such videos from the conflict, moments that capture the war and define it. Video number 1 takes us to Iran. This morning, the confirmation came in, the supreme leader was dead, and then thousands of people poured out on the streets. Some in black, some beating their chests, some weeping openly. Men and women holding up portraits of Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. Some of them said that they'd lost a father. But here's the other side of the frame. Not everyone was in mourning because not everyone loved this regime. This was a leadership that crushed dissent, that jailed protesters, that oversaw years of sanctions, isolation, and economic pain. So in many corners of the country, there were also celebrations. Some people were even dancing on the streets. Some videos even show a big crowd toppling a monument built in Khamenei's honor. So 2 very different Irans playing out on camera. Which brings us to video number 2. Wars may be fought on the battlefield, but they are won or lost on the screen, it seems. And that's where the curated strike videos come in. Both the United States and Israel have released such videos. Israel is showing targeted strikes on Iranian targets, and Washington is displaying its firepower. Video number 3 is from Dubai. It has long been known as one of the safest cities in the world, a safe haven for business, tourism, global finance, but it now finds itself on the front line of a widening regional war. Yesterday, a hotel came under attack in Dubai, the upscale Palm Jumeirah. It was struck by an Iranian drone. There was a massive fire. 4 people were injured. Officials say that it did not cause much damage. Some 137 missiles and 209 drones were fired at the UAE. Most of them were intercepted. Today, too, there were multiple strikes. The Dubai International Airport was also attacked. This is one of the busiest airports in the world. We'll tell you about other such attacks in a bit. But this is not so much about the physical damage alone. It's more about the shock value. For many people, Dubai is no longer the safe haven they once knew.
Holy mother.
And it's not just Dubai. Iran's retaliation has rattled other Gulf states too. In Doha, for instance, flashes lit up the night sky as they intercepted Iran's missiles. Loud explosions were heard in the Qatari capital, leaving residents worried about the impact. And that's video number 4 for us. In Bahrain, things were even more grave. There were multiple airstrikes, missiles heading towards them. Bahrain intercepted most of them, but some struck buildings and led to massive fires. That's video number 5. It shows flames engulfing the upper levels of a skyscraper with dense plumes of smoke rising above the Bahraini capital, Manama. Next is Kuwait, and our last video. A reported drone strike hit the airport, sending passengers scrambling for cover. Videos from inside the terminal show thick smoke filling the hall, travelers running in fear, children crying, and security forces rushing to lock down the area. Kuwaiti state television called it a drone strike targeting the airport. So far, officials have not confirmed the extent of the damage or whether there are any casualties. But of course, this is not happening in isolation. Across the Gulf, emergency aviation measures are now in place. The United Arab Emirates temporarily shut its air force. Qatar suspended air traffic, and Kuwait has cancelled all flights to Iran until further notice. Right now, the airspace over West Asia is completely empty. So those were our top videos, a window into a war that is fast spreading across West Asia. It's not limited to 1 or 2 countries. It's across the region. It is the perfect storm. Iran is facing a crisis on 3 fronts. There is a power vacuum, a succession crisis, and an active war. Can the regime survive this? Are there any leaders left in their top ranks, and who will lead the country now? As we speak, a transition is underway. Within hours of Ayatollah Ali Khamenei's death, there was an announcement. It came from Iran's security chief Ali Larijani. We've told you about him. Larijani is a key figure in the country's political setup. He was a key confidant of Khamenei, a trusted lieutenant. According to many observers, he could play a key role in the transition of power. Although Larijani will not become the supreme leader himself because he is not a cleric, but he will be kingmaker. Now, Larijani says that an interim leadership council has been created. This council has 3 members: Iran's president, Masoud Pezeshkian, the head of Iran's judiciary, Gholam Hossein Mohseni Ezesi, and a senior cleric from the Guardian Council. Now, what is the Guardian Council? Think of it as Iran's constitutional watchdog. It does not make laws, but it decides who is allowed to run in important elections. They can block any candidate that they do not approve of. Effectively, this council controls who appears on the ballot in Iran. And that makes them one of the most powerful bodies in Iran. One of the council's senior members is now part of this 3-member power transition team. This team will handle the supreme leader's duties, but this is an interim arrangement until the next supreme leader is elected. Now, how will he be elected? That decision rests with a different institution. It's called the Assembly of Experts. It had 88 senior clerics as members. They are elected by Iranian citizens every 8 years. This assembly of 88 clerics, 88 experts, will pick the next supreme leader. But it may not happen in a hurry because, as you can see, Iran is still fighting a war. Iranian cities, including the capital Tehran, are still being bombarded. Senior clerics are either hiding or on the move. So convening all 88 of them is going to be a challenge at this point. Observers say the work would already have begun. It is possible that senior clerics are holding discussions in secret. Which brings us to the next question. Who are the potential candidates? And this is where it gets complicated because there is no obvious successor. For years, the frontrunner was former President Ibrahim Raisi. He was seen as the natural heir to Khamenei. But Raisi died in a helicopter crash in 2024. Since then, the field has been wide open. Khamenei did plan for a scenario like this. Last year, during the 12-day war with Israel, he made a list. Reports say that he picked 3 potential successors, 3 potential leaders who could replace him, but their names were never made public. That list of 3 leaders could decide Iran's future. It is also possible that the people who knew this list, who knew the names of Khamenei's potential successors, might also be dead. Because, like we've been telling you, Israel's strikes did not just kill Khamenei, they decimated the command structure around him. More than 30 top military and civilian leaders were targeted. At least 7 are confirmed dead. Despite all the ambiguity, some names are still doing the rounds. The names of potential successors. Names like Mojtaba Khamenei. He is one of Ayatollah Khamenei's 4 sons. Now, Mojtaba is not a public figure. He operates entirely in the shadows. Reports say he manages much of his father's wealth and influence, but he has no formal position in the state. So he could take over. That's one possibility. Another possibility is the IRGC taking over. That's the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. It is Iran's elite military force, not their regular army. This one is in charge of protecting the regime. It controls significant portions of Iran's economy as well as key power centers. So it is possible that the IRGC could step in to this vacuum. What about Donald Trump? He's not taking over, but will he try to install a leader of his choice? Trump has said publicly that he wants regime change in Iran, and there is only already one man, angling for the job. I'm sure there are many, but this one is very, very prominent. Reza Pahlavi, the son of Iran's last Shah. He praised the attack on Iran within hours of the first strikes. He called the strikes a humanitarian intervention. Pahlavi is a man in exile, but he's making a serious play for power. The problem is, Iranians are sharply divided over him. So even if he were installed, the government would be deeply unstable. The other thing is this. No regime has been changed by aerial strikes alone. Ground invasions have been tried in Iraq and Afghanistan, but neither produced a stable outcome. Because you see, bombs can remove leadership. They cannot build one. So Trump might not be able to dictate an outcome here. He may have been successful with that in Venezuela, but Iran is not Venezuela. Venezuela collapsed because power lived in one place at the very top, in the president's office. Iran is different. In Iran, power does not live in one office alone. It is distributed across multiple institutions. The Supreme Leader, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the Guardian Council, the Assembly of Experts, the judiciary, each institution holds a piece of the system. The question is, how many of these power structures have survived? Can the chain of command be re-established? More importantly, can the regime sustain itself in the current form? Amid relentless attacks from Trump and Israel and a fragile economy. The world will find out in the days ahead.
Viewers, the war is on. The war is on in the Middle East, and it is only widening by the minute. And it was expected that the Iranian regime would fold, but it hasn't. It has decided to dig its heels deep into the ground, and it is fighting with its back to the wall, unprecedented visuals coming out from the Middle East, viewers, today. We will first begin with the most emblematic picture that we were expecting to see, or we would have expected to see, but perhaps not today, in the next few days. But viewers, unfortunately for Ayatollah Khamenei, the first visuals that are coming out from Iran are of his own decapitation. These, viewers, are the IRGC headquarters. This is where somehow, God knows how, Ayatollah was present in the most expected location. He was not supposed to be there, viewers. Anyone else would have decided not to be at the most obvious site, the site where perhaps the Americans and the Israelis would target first. Why he was there, we don't know. Did someone give him away? We don't know. But the fact is, viewers, in the first wave, in what was being called the preemptory attack by the United States and Israel, Ayatollah Khamenei's end came. For about 8 hours, Iran refused to confirm. It took President Trump on Truth Social to come out and say that Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, had been decapitated in a strike that had been conducted by Israeli and American forces. 40 bunker busters pummeled this headquarters. It's in the heart of Tehran. As I said, viewers, it was the most obvious site. Why the Ayatollah chose to be there, we don't know. But we do know that with him went a number of other senior leaders. And you can see these buildings basically being reduced to rubble within seconds. The impact was so devastating that for a mile around this building, viewers, you can see that road there. All those cars zipping past.
Iran's hand is significantly weak, their top leadership is gone, their air defenses are obliterated, and they stand alone without allies or proxies. So here's the question: how long can this regime keep fighting? It depends on 5 factors. The first factor is geography. Iran is a vast country with deserts, mountains, and rugged hills. Not to mention, it's a massive country. Iran's size is around 1.6 million square kilometers. 1.6 million square kilometers, that's more than 3 times the size of Iraq and more than 2 times the size of Afghanistan. Remember, the US tried regime change in both these countries, Iraq and Afghanistan, and both times the Americans lost. So chances are the US will not put soldiers in Iran. And without soldiers on the ground, it will be hard to install and protect a new regime. And this is just one benefit of the geography. The vast landmass allows Iran to absorb more attacks. Just compare it to Israel. Israel's area is only 22,000 square kilometers. It's basically a packed strip of people. So any Iranian attack will cause massive damage in Israel, and we saw that last year in June. Israel landed 379 attacks on Iran. They hit 28 out of Iran's 31 provinces, and yet Iran kept firing back. In response, the Iranians landed around 50 missile hits on Israel. And 50 hits was enough to force a ceasefire. You see the difference? 379 attacks from Israel versus 50 attacks from Iran. In geopolitics, we call this strategic depth. When you're attacked, you can fall back deeper into your vast land. Iran has the depth, Israel does not. Then you have the Strait of Hormuz. Iran is located on this key waterway. It carries around 20% of global oil shipments. It's a blessing of geography. But geography alone cannot protect them forever. The second factor is their missile stockpile. This is the regime's offensive trump card. So far, the Iranians have fired more than 150 ballistic missiles at Israel and US targets. Last June, they'd fired 500. And how many do they have? Reports say Iran has some 3,000 missiles. Not all of these missiles can reach Israel. Some of them can only reach neighboring US bases. So Iran will have to make some crucial calculations. Do they fire endlessly? Do they fire in waves? How many missiles in each wave? Which missiles for different targets and so on? They will have to optimize all of that. Plus, it's not enough to have missiles. You also need launch by those missiles. Both Israel and the US are taking out those launchers. They're attacking Iranian launchers. So while the missiles are a key weapon, Iran will have to use it strategically. Then we come to the third factor, the role of the Iranian people. It is no secret that the regime is unpopular in Iran. A lot of Iranians are fed up with the brutal clerical rule. The question is, will that force them to hit the streets? Will they mobilize to take on the regime's forces? Benjamin Netanyahu and Donald Trump are betting on this, but the problem is there is no organized opposition in Iran. There is no nationwide democracy movement. Plus, right now, the people are scared. Israeli and American bombs are streaking over their heads. In this atmosphere of fear, people may hesitate to go out and protest. Which brings us to the fourth factor. Will the regime crack? We saw this happen in Venezuela. President Nicolas Maduro's deputy tacitly sided with the US. She agreed to take over after Maduro's capture. If that happens in Iran, the regime may collapse or transform itself. But as of now, that has not happened. Unlike Venezuela, Iran's regime is a hardened ideological theocracy. It is bound together by religion, personality, cults, and ideological rigidity. Those are extremely hard to break apart. So if the regime does not crack, you will need even more power to overthrow it. Basically, take out more and more senior leaders. And now the final factor. Can the US allies take strong punches? Say the Gulf Arab economies take a huge hit. Say Arab citizens are killed or injured in this crossfire. Will these countries absorb the punches like Iran or Israel? Will their rulers show the appetite to hit back? Iran is hoping they won't. Iran is hoping that these attacks will force the Gulf states to push Trump for peace. So far it has not worked, but it's a strategy that Iran is betting on. Even if the regime is toppled, an orderly transition appears unlikely. History is proof of that. If Iraq did not work, if Afghanistan did not work, if Libya did not work, why would it work in a larger, more complex and powerful country like Iran? Some people may ask, what if it does work? Well, yes, there is always an outside chance that something works. But to test out your hunch, you're putting 90 million lives at risk. And that is why regime changes are universally condemned. Not because people like oppressive regimes, but because the cost of failure is way too high. A new weapon is part of the battlefield in West Asia. It's not a missile or a drone. It is artificial intelligence, specifically Anthropic's Claude platform. The US used Claude to strike Iran. Claude was used to map targets, identify patterns from the intelligence inputs, and create military simulations. Now, this is very significant and interesting because just days before the attack on Iran, US President Donald Trump had declared war on Anthropic. He virtually banned Anthropic's tools from the US military setup. They were labeled as a national security threat. Trump ordered American agencies to stop using Anthropic's Claude. The Pentagon called Anthropic a risk to America's supply chains. This is a kind of designation reserved only for rivals like Russia and China. They used it for Anthropic. And barely days later, Anthropic's Claude is helping the US strike Iran. The US may still stop using Claude, but not immediately. The military establishment says it could take up to 6 months for them to change platforms. Meanwhile, details of this operation are also revealing. They demonstrate how AI is changing the battlefield. The US military began using Claude in 2024, and since then, its role has grown quietly but significantly. Reports say Claude was used in Venezuela as well. For the operation to capture Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro, they used Claude. And now it has played a role in Iran too. So what does Claude do for the US military? Most of us know the platform. It works like a chat bot, something you can type in your questions into and the bot answers the queries. That's what we understand. But the US military uses a different version of Claude. And in that system, Claude is not a chat bot. In that system, it works like a powerful reasoning and analysis system. It processes vast amounts of intelligence data faster than a human. It can identify targets, it can identify patterns, and it can simulate war scenarios. You can think of it like a war room assistant, one that never misses any patterns. One of the primary users of Claude, in fact, is the US Central Command, or CENTCOM. They use Claude. Now, CENTCOM is headquartered in Florida. CENTCOM looks after all US operations in West Asia. And how do they use Claude? Broadly, for three purposes. One is intelligence assessments. Second, target identification. And third, battle simulation. To put it simply, Claude helps the US military decide who to strike, where to strike, and when, what can happen in an active battlefield next. And it gauges all of this based on previous data. CENTCOM was asked which of these systems was used in the Iran operations. And they decided not to share specifics. But some reports do confirm that Claude was part of the operation. So did it play a role in the killing of Ali Khamenei? We do not know that. In fact, there is limited information about the whole operation, limited details, but here's what we know. The whole thing was intelligence-driven. The planning began months ago. Reports say the CIA had been watching Khamenei's movements for months. Over a period of time, they were able to build a picture about the locations that Khamenei visited, his movement patterns, his routines. Recently, the CIA had an intelligence breakthrough. They learned that a meeting has been convened. A meeting will be held on Saturday, 28th February, which was yesterday. The CIA learned that Iran's top leadership would be present in that meeting, including Ayatollah Ali Khamenei himself. And they learned that the meeting would happen in a compound in Tehran. The CIA had all this information. They passed it on to the Israelis, who then carried out the mission yesterday. It began at around 6 a.m. in Israel. Fighter jets lifted off from their bases. They were armed with long-range precision munitions, weapons which can conduct surgical strikes. At around 9:30 a.m. in Tehran, a missile struck that compound. It took out senior Iranian officials along with Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. So the intelligence was accurate. And that can be the difference between victory and defeat in a war. Intelligence has always been critical in a war. What is new is speed. Because AI is now inside the decision-making process. Thankfully, AI is not taking decisions just yet, but it is making the process faster. Data that took days to process can now be assessed within hours. And what happened in Iran is a demonstration of that shift. So West Asia is on fire. Explosions were heard in Saudi Arabia's Riyadh as well. The kingdom confirmed the strikes. It said Iran had hit its capital and eastern region. Now, we don't know about the extent of the damage, but Saudi Arabia is furious. Riyadh says it has the right to respond.
These attacks cannot be justified under any pretext or in any way, and they came despite the Iranian authorities knowing that the kingdom had confirmed that it would not allow its airspace and territory to be used to target Iran.
But here's the bigger question doing the rounds. Did Saudi Arabia's crown prince quietly convince Donald Trump to pull the trigger? Did he lobby Trump to attack Iran? We're talking about MBS, Mohammed bin Salman. Reports say he may have persuaded Donald Trump to attack Iran. In fact, look at this report. It says the US and Israel struck Iran, but the decision was not just theirs. A third party was involved in taking this call. And that third party was MBS. the de facto ruler of Saudi Arabia. Publicly, he's been calling for diplomacy, but privately, he's apparently been making repeated phone calls to Donald Trump. And in every call, he had one request: take military action against Iran. Now, if this version is to be believed, MBS was pushing Trump to attack Iran. And then, of course, there's Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli Prime Minister. It's something that he's wanted for decades, attacking Iran. He wanted Trump to end an existential Iranian threat. That's what Netanyahu calls it. So you had two powerful regional leaders, MBS and Benjamin Netanyahu, both leaning on Washington, both trying to convince Trump to act. And the US president actually did. So why would MBS want this? Here's where the story gets deeper. Saudi Arabia and Iran are not just rivals, they are ideological enemies. Saudi Arabia is the center of Sunni Islam. Iran is the powerhouse of Shia Islam. The rivalry goes back to 1979, the year of the Islamic Revolution. It's when the Islamic Republic of Iran was created. Since then, the two countries have fought multiple proxy wars, from Yemen to Syria to Iraq to Lebanon. And they were never direct conflicts. But it was sort of like a West Asian Cold War, one that had been simmering for decades. And in recent years, from Riyadh's perspective, Iran has been winning. Iran controlled groups like Hezbollah in Lebanon. Iran had immense influence in Iraq. Iran had the support of the Houthis in Yemen, who kept firing missiles towards Saudi territory. So Iran had strategic depth, and Riyadh was rattled by this. Then why pretend about diplomacy? Well, that's the interesting part. In recent years, Saudi Arabia and Iran had started cautiously restoring ties. China brokered a diplomatic thaw a few years back. Also, public diplomacy protects Saudi Arabia's image. But privately, pressurizing Trump helps their security interests. After all, Khamenei's killing weakens Tehran's ideological core. And from Riyadh's perspective, that could be a positive shift. That's it. It happened without Saudi Arabia firing a single missile. So it's a win-win situation for them. But then again, why would Trump listen to MBS? Frankly, we don't know if MBS convinced him. But the report strongly suggests that he did lobby Trump, and he did it repeatedly. And Trump was already inclined to confront Iran. So the lobbying from Israel and Saudi Arabia only added to his resolve. He was already leaning towards the attack. They may have given the final push, because this aligns with everyone's interest. Israel sees Iran as a mortal enemy. Saudi Arabia sees Iran as a regional threat. And Trump sees Iran as a long-standing adversary. So attacking Iran makes sense for all three of them. I must repeat here, these are just reports. And in cases like these, official confirmation or proof is hard to come by. So we go with reports. If these reports are true, MBS won without firing a shot. He did not have to mobilize troops or make speeches. All he needed was access to Donald Trump. Now, when you hear West Asia, what is it that comes to mind? In our circles, it's usually something not encouraging, maybe sirens in Tel Aviv, or explosions in Beirut, or long and bloody civil wars. Unfortunately, that's been the media stereotype about West Asia. But even in this gloom, one city has always stood out, sort of like an oasis, far removed from wars or proxies or missiles. The city of gleaming towers and artificial beaches, a city of foreign businessmen, influencers and sports icons, a picture of calm amid chaos. I'm talking about the city of Dubai. But in the last 2 days, that calm has been shattered. Hotels in Dubai have been hit by Iran. Even the airport and the iconic Burj Khalifa have been damaged. The question is, will this permanently hurt the city's global ambitions? And what is the UAE government doing about it?
There's a meme floating around on social media. Came to Dubai for the tax shelter, now stuck in a bomb shelter. In peacetime, it may have elicited a few laughs. But now, in the middle of booming drone interceptions and burning hotels, there are few laughs. Dubai is sitting in the middle of a war zone, and the next Iranian strike could land anywhere. This footage probably sums it up best. an Iranian projectile flying dangerously close to the iconic Burj Khalifa. Thankfully, it's blown up before impact. Other sites were not so lucky. On Palm Island, the Fairmont Hotel was targeted by Iranian Shahed drones. Tourists rushed out in panic as a fire broke out. The Burj Al Arab Hotel met the same fate. This high-rise, along with the Khalifa, is the poster child of Dubai's glittering skyline. Overnight, it was hit by Iranian drone debris. Dubai's ports were not safe either. Both the airport and the seaport were hit by projectiles. Such scenes were unthinkable until yesterday. A war in West Asia may not shake you up as much, but strikes and drones in Dubai, that's enough to shake up anyone. Because Dubai wasn't just a city, it was an exception and an inspiration in a region known for instability. The city's history goes back centuries. Dubai began its journey as a small fishing village. In the 20th century, it was developed as a trading and transport hub. After all, here was a city located on the Persian Gulf near the mouth of the Strait of Hormuz. Then, in the 1960s, came the oil boom. Dubai did not squander its oil revenue. The ruling family invested all that money into infrastructure. By the 2000s, the city was home to global icons, like the Burj Khalifa, the tallest building in the world, and the Palm Island, an artificial archipelago, home to luxury residences and hotels. Even now, trade and transit remain crucial for Dubai's success. The city's airport handles 95 million passengers annually. The Jebel Ali seaport handles 15.5 million 20-foot equivalent units of cargo. As a safe, swanky, and prosperous city, Dubai is home to a cosmopolitan population. Only 10% of the population is Emirati. The remaining 90% are from outside, from dozens of nationalities. This booming success of Dubai was based on the stability and peace that it offered. Other cities like Jeddah and Doha tried to replicate its success. But if you cannot guarantee that stability and peace, will these cities flourish? Will tourism or trade thrive? Only time will tell.
As the crisis continues to unfold, its impact is becoming global. Airports across the world, in fact, are facing disruption. Flights have been cancelled, routes diverted, and thousands of passengers stranded over the past 2 days. Much of the airspace over West Asia remains closed or restricted, and major hubs like Dubai, Abu Dhabi, and Doha have all come to a halt. For many travelers, there is still no clear timeline of when they can fly. So how extensive is this travel disruption? And if you are planning to fly soon, what should you be doing? Here's our report.
Across airports from Asia to Europe, the scene is the same. Passengers are stranded beneath flickering departure boards. The word cancelled flashes in red. Gates that should be boarding long-haul flights stand still. And no one is able to tell the travelers when that will change. Above West Asia, flight paths that normally link continents have gone quiet. The disruption followed a sudden military escalation. The United States and Israel carried out strikes on Iran on Saturday. Iran responded with missile and drone attacks across the region. Within hours, the skies began to close. Large stretches over Iran, Iraq, Kuwait, Israel, Bahrain, Qatar, and the UAE were closed or heavily restricted. Flight tracking data then showed those corridors almost empty of commercial aviation traffic. The consequences were immediate. Dubai, Abu Dhabi, and Doha are not just any destinations. They are the engine rooms of global long-haul travel, handling millions of connecting passengers every week. When those hubs slow or shut down, the disruption does not stay local. It spreads. Reports indicate that thousands of flights planned to West Asia have been cancelled or diverted over the past 2 days. And the number is still rising. The uncertainty is now adding to the chaos inside terminals. In Bali, travelers crowded around airline counters serving Gulf routes. Departure screens showed flights to Doha and Abu Dhabi marked cancelled or postponed. At least 1,000 passengers were affected after 5 services were disrupted. I asked, is the airspace closed? Yes, yes, yes. But anyway, it doesn't matter. We're waiting here. We slept at the airport. We've been here since 10 p.m. yesterday. And now it's almost 1 p.m. Still no news, so we're waiting. In Paris, flights to the Gulf disappeared from departure screens.
I had a flight this morning to Thailand with a layover in Doha, and unfortunately the flight was canceled due to the tensions in Iran. So now we're trying to find a solution to still make our trip to Thailand.
Then the situation worsened further. Reports emerged of Iranian strikes damaging facilities in Dubai, Abu Dhabi and Kuwait. That deepened concerns about the safety of airports across the region. In fact, the chaos has not stayed contained to the Gulf. Tensions between Afghanistan and Pakistan have added further strain as airlines navigate narrower corridors. And the ripple effects of that have reached India too. Air India cancelled multiple departures from Delhi, Mumbai and Amritsar to London, New York, Chicago, Toronto, Frankfurt and Paris. Indigo extended the suspension of several international routes that pass through West Asia airspace. At several airports in India, passengers faced long queues and abrupt itinerary changes.
The flight has been cancelled and they have no information of when the aerospace will be opened. They are not giving us to rebook. They are not giving us any options as of now.
Airlines across Europe, Asia and North America have grounded services or diverted aircraft along longer routes. This is to avoid the closed skies. Some carriers have paused operations entirely until authorities confirm conditions are safe. Others are operating reduced schedules with extended flying times. For passengers caught up in this, the situation is still changing rapidly. Here is what you need to do right now. Do not travel unless your journey is urgent. Check your flight status directly with your airline before leaving for the airport. Make sure your contact details with your carrier are up to date. Know what refund and rebooking options are available to you. And expect last-minute changes and factor in extra time. Above all, keep monitoring your government's official travel advisory. For now, flights across one of the world's busiest air corridors remain severely disrupted. And there is no clear timeline yet for a full return to normal operations.
Viewers, the war is on. The war is on in the Middle East, and it is only widening by the minute. And it was expected that the Iranian regime would fold, but it hasn't. It has decided to dig its heels deep into the ground, and it is fighting with its back to the wall. Unprecedented visuals coming out from the Middle East, viewers, today. We will first begin with the most emblematic picture that we were expecting to see, or we would have expected to see, but perhaps not today, in the next few days. But viewers, unfortunately for Ayatollah Khamenei, the first visuals that are coming out from Iran are of his own decapitation. These, viewers, are the IRGC headquarters. This is where somehow, God knows how, Ayatollah was present in the most expected location. He was not supposed to be there, viewers. Anyone else would have decided not to be at the most obvious site, the site where perhaps the Americans and the Israelis would target first. Why he was there, we don't know. Did someone give him away? We don't know. But the fact is, viewers, in the first wave, in what was being called the preemptory attack by the United States and Israel, Ayatollah Khamenei's end came. For about 8 hours, Iran refused to confirm. It took President Trump on Truth Social to come out and say that Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, had been decapitated in a strike that had been conducted by Israeli and American forces. 40 bunker busters pummeled this headquarters. It's in the heart of Tehran. As I said, viewers, it was the most obvious site. Why the Ayatollah chose to be there, we don't know. But we do know that with him went a number of other senior leaders. And you can see these buildings basically being reduced to rubble within seconds. The impact was so devastating that for a mile around this building, viewers, you can see that road there. All those cars zipping past, but within minutes, seconds, entire area was covered in a pall of smoke. Nothing was left, viewers, of that site. And with him went Ayatollah Khamenei. 40 years he had been ruling Iran. His hold was a stranglehold. The people of Iran feared him. 50% of the population hated him. But he hung on there, viewers.
We told you about the latest developments in West Asia, but now let's also talk about the man himself. For more than 3 decades, Iran had one man at the top, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. He was not elected as the so-called supreme leader by the public, but he controlled everything in the country. Presidents changed, policy shifted, but Khamenei stayed. He shaped Iran's nuclear ambitions. He oversaw its regional alliances and defined its confrontation with the West. But now he's gone and he leaves the country at a crossroads. So how did Ayatollah Ali Khamenei rise to power, and what kind of Iran did he build? Here's his story.
He rarely gave interviews. He never held a press conference. And for over 36 years, no one in Iran could truly challenge or question him in public. Ayatollah Ali Khamenei was the most powerful man in Iran and one of the most secretive leaders in the world. Born in 1939 in Mashhad, a holy city in northeastern Iran, he grew up poor. His family sometimes had nothing to eat but bread and raisins, but books shaped him deeply. Yet it was Islam and a fiery cleric named Ruhollah Khomeini that set the course of his life. By the time the Islamic Revolution toppled the Shah of Iran in 1979, Khomeini was already a trusted figure in the movement. He had been jailed multiple times for opposing the monarchy, and then was reportedly exiled to a remote desert city near the Pakistan border.
Sorry, Zaka, I missed you out there. What we're going to do to our viewers, bear with us. I've got Tom Cooper here with me. We've got the wall and we've got the map. Let's try and understand how this entire strikes, how did 200 Israeli aircraft fly over the Tehran airspace, drop those bombs and then come back? So let's game this and understand, does Tehran have no air defense system? And that too, you had the Israeli aircrafts take off from here, Tom, correct? So tell us, and how did this happen? How does this work?
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. It's like this. You have the Iranian air defense system is approximately here, around Tabriz, around Tehran, and you have Qom and Esfahan and Karaj. So this is the principal area that, sorry, I forgot further south here, another one. This is the principal areas that are covered by Iranian air defense system. The Israelis now come up from Israel, fly over Syria and Iraq.
Right.
Like this.
So that's how they cleared the airspaces in these regions so that these planes could fly.
Exactly. This is why no airliners are currently permitted to fly over Iraq and over Syria.
Right.
So over the border between Iraq and Syria, there are US and Israeli tankers waiting for them, and they are refueling them in the air.
In the air. So
yes.
the on-air, mid-air tankers. Okay, because this is more than a 2,000-kilometer journey that they have to
It
fly,
is
right?
over 1,000 kilometers, 1,700 kilometers to the border, so 1,500 kilometers. But the point is this, in order to release their missiles, they have to fly high and fast, which is spending lots of fuel. Therefore, here, either the Israeli or the US tankers from bases in Saudi Arabia come up here and are waiting for them here in this area.
So that's where the on-air refueling happens over Syria and Iraq airspace?
Over Iraq.
About how many thousand feet high?
Well, 30,000 feet.
30,000 feet plus.
Okay. So more, that depends on the weather.
Right.
Generally, tanker aircraft is flying higher. It lowers its boom and then.
मुझे ये चीज़ लगा आज हमारी टीम का जीतने के बाद जो एटीट्यूड था ना वो ऐसा था यार तुम जितना ही मतलब चेज कर लेंगे कोई बड़ी बात नहीं थी कोई somebody was asking sir कोई सेलिब्रेट क्यों नहीं कर रहा है कोई इतना ये क्यों नहीं है देख
एक्चुअली मैं करूँगा करके टीम बंदे ने किया है लेट्स बी वेरी ऑनेस्ट
करेक्ट
हमने ये दिस इज नॉट टीम वर्क एंड टीम ने चेस नहीं किया एक ही बंदा
और मैं उठ के आना चाहता हूँ उसकी इनिंग ऐसी थी कि सामने वाली टीम ऐसी हो गई सर एक बार पैर हटाना था ये देखो
उसकी इनिंग ऐसी थी कि सामने वाली टीम की हालत वैसी हो गई
सो टेक्निकली आज मैच इंडिया वर्सेस वेस्ट इंडीज का नहीं था सॉरी थोड़ा चेंज करना पड़ेगा आज संजू वर्सेस वेस्ट इंडीज मैच था वेल प्लेड
यार ऐसे मत बोलो यार संजू का आपने शायद वो 50 के बाद भी आपने देखा होगा he was yes it's good to say संजू ने खुद किया बट भगवान की शुक्र है उनको जैसे हमने बात किया था ना टीम में चेंज होगा थैंक गॉड कि संजू गॉट अनदर अपॉर्चुनिटी और जब कोई ऐसे अच्छे मौकों में अपॉर्चुनिटी मिलता है ही सेट दिस ऑन हिज शोल्डर तो आपने देखा 50 के बाद उन्होंने फिर वापस गार्ड लिया था और डी के जब कमेंट्री में भी बोला वन थिंग